All right, well, good evening. Welcome to the El Centro City Council meeting dated June 20th, 2017. I appreciate everybody being here and considering the weather. I do apologize for not being in a suit. I thought my colleagues were gonna join, but it is 120 degrees. But I do want to welcome you to our City Council meeting. We're gonna go ahead and start with our roll call, and I'll ask our clerk to call this meeting to order.
Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Silva.
Present.
Councilmember Garcia.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker.
Here.
And Mayor Gardenas.
Present. Will you guys please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? It's going to be led by Councilmember Efrain Silva.
Ready? Begin.
If you could please remain standing and bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you this evening full of gratitude that we have this opportunity to meet and to do the business that affects this community. Help us to be mindful of not only what's happening in our country, but in the world, and help us to just make this a better place. Things we ask in thy precious name. Amen.
Thank you, Councilmember Efrain Silva and Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker. We'll go ahead and move down to closed session comments or report from closed session. Anything to report? Ms.
No
Betsy?
reportable action.
Thank you very much. I also want to have our city clerk read a comment regarding, or read a statement regarding public comments. Ms. Diane?
This is a public meeting. If there's an item on the agenda on which you wish to be heard, you're asked to complete a blue speaker slip and submit it to the city clerk prior to the start of the meeting. Persons wishing to address the city council, successor agencies to the RDA and successor housing agency are not required to identify themselves. However, this information assists the mayor by ensuring that all persons wishing to address the council are recognized, and also assists the city clerk in preparing the city council meeting minutes. When the item is announced and your name is called by the mayor, please step to the podium and state your name for the record. Unless the mayor extends the time, there is a 3-minute time limit for each public presentation. If you wish to address the council, successor agency to the redevelopment agency, or the successor housing agency concerning any other matter not appearing on the agenda, you may do so during the public comment portion of the agenda.
All right, thank you, Ms. Diane. So we're going to go ahead and move down the agenda in regards to presentation and announcements. And in regards to item number 1, I am going to push that to our next council meeting. Mr. Salgado couldn't make it, so we're going to have to wait. So we'll go ahead and move down to item number 2, and we have a proclamation. So I'm very happy to share a proclamation presentation regarding fatherhood and the support of fatherhood, the month, or Responsible Fatherhood Month. So I would ask that somebody from, I believe someone's here from IVROP. All right. And maybe before I read, if you can maybe come to the podium, and I do have a proclamation, and maybe before I declare it or proclaim it, maybe, is there anything you want to share in regards to this month being Fatherhood, Responsible Fatherhood Month?
Yes, actually, I want to say on behalf of AVROP, we are grateful for the council proclaiming June being Responsible Fatherhood Month, for your work in support of the fathers and families in this community, and recognizing the importance role of fatherhood has on children's families in our community and our society.
Excellent. Well, we do appreciate it, and I know my colleagues are very supportive of this proclamation. So before I proclaim it, does anybody have some general comments when it comes to fatherhood or us proclaiming Fatherhood Month? Mr. Garcia, are you a father?
Sometimes.
Okay. Any general comments or anything you want to share?
Well, I just think it's extremely important, considering we just had Father's Day celebrated with all of our families, and it's great the work that you do. I know that you have a lot of programs for fathers, and especially dealing with the court systems, and that helps them get back on track and see what they can accomplish in terms of their goals. So I commend you for that. It's without you guys doing that program, we really didn't have many resources out here. A lot of the resources were in San Diego, so I know that made a big difference once you started doing those programs. So I commend you, and it's well deserved.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm so glad you're here. This is such a special time for us to talk about fathers. Father's Day for me is always a bittersweet day. I lost my dad when he was 58 years old, and I now figure out that I'm older than my dad was when he passed away, which is really pretty shocking for me. I appreciate the fact that I have 2 sons, and when they were growing up here in the Valley, I always said, just wait till you have kids of your own. Now they have kids of their own, and I'm like, see, I told you, right? The other thing I talk to my boys about, though, all the time is that what a different world we would have if every child that came into this world had somebody in their life that felt that they were just loved beyond belief, beyond imagination, right? Who always supported them, believed in them. I think that that would take care of a lot of the ills that we have in society today. So I support all of your efforts to just recognize that fatherhood really is the most important vocation you could ever have. Thank you for being here.
Nicely stated. Councilmember Silva?
Maybe I just want to thank you, Wendy, for being here. I didn't see you in the back. ROP has a lot of tremendous programs that help our community, including programs that provide men with the skills necessary to become responsible parents. And many times we take those things for granted, but in many cases, some people don't have those skills to be able to give them the tools to become responsible parents. That's the key to success to our young people, is having, adequate parenting and nurturing parenting that is going to support them and be with them and guide them through some very difficult years. And I think, that's what ROP does in terms of the programs and services that they provide. So this is something very much deserved for ROP and for our community. And, I think that we will see the fruits of these programs later in life as our young people become adults, and they also become responsible adults and responsible fathers and mothers of their own.
Councilmember Jackson?
I just feel like there's a lot of pressure on me right now. As I look forward to my first child coming in December. So I look forward to fatherhood and experiencing what all the rest of my colleagues here have already experienced. So thank you for being here.
All right, and I just kind of in closing do echo all the comments from our council, and again appreciate staff and council supporting this initiative and recognizing the Responsible Fatherhood Month for the month of June. So I'd like to share this proclamation, so I'll go ahead and read it. It says, City of El Centro Proclamation, Responsible Fatherhood Month, June 2017. Father Day is a celebration in the United States on June 18, 2017, and this day honors and celebrates fatherhood, parental bonds, and the influence of fathers in society. And the role of a responsible father carries enormous responsibilities, and active and commitment fathers make a lasting difference in a life of a child. Fathers are our first coaches, mentors, role models, and push us to succeed and encourage us when we struggle, and offer unconditional love and support. The Imperial Valley Regional Occupational Programs promotes responsible parenting, healthy relationships, family development, and stabilization. Now, therefore, I, Alex Cardenas, Mayor of the City of El Centro, State of California, do hereby proclaim June 2017 as Responsible Fatherhood Month in the City of El Centro, and encourage all to join in this observation. So on behalf of the City Council, our entire staff, we do like to proclaim this month as being Responsible Fatherhood Month here in El Centro. So I do have a certificate. Do we want to take a quick picture? All right. All right, thank you again. We are going to take some things out of order. I'm going to move item number 3. I'm going to put that right behind item number 6. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and move into scheduled public comment. We do have a new employee introduction. So we have our police chief.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. I always enjoy coming before you to introduce new employees. So tonight I want to introduce our newest dispatcher. If I can have her step up here, it's Angelica Felix, and I'll let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to be in front of you guys tonight. My name's Angelica Felix. I grew up here in the Valley. I graduated from Imperial High School. I've attended IVC. I'm a parent myself, as you guys are talking about. And I'm just excited to be working for the city. I'm excited for this new journey. Thank you.
Excellent. Any comments from the council? Councilmember Jackson?
So, good seeing you.
Good to see you.
I'd like
too.
to think that maybe you learned a little of the dispatching skills working for me a few years ago.
Of course.
But welcome to the city of El Centro and to our family, and working with a great command staff, great chief, and great personnel. So take care of those guys while they're out in the field.
And I'm happy in a lot of ways, so I'll just give you the checks. You know, a woman, check, working for the police department. Local resident, check. IVC student, check.
Just
Thank
one
you.
check? I was like, check, check.
Yeah, check. So congratulations and welcome also.
Thank
Just
you.
want to wish you well as you start your career here with the city of El Centro.
Thank you.
Welcome to the team. It's a great team from the top to the bottom. You're working for a great department, hopefully a great city, and we hope you have a great career. Thank you.
And again, just on behalf of our council, we do want to welcome you. I know our dispatchers do a lot of great work, great talent. There's a lot of talented folks there, so don't be shy about asking questions. Really proud about our dispatchers and the work that they do. So welcome to our family. Thank you for being here. And Chief, thank you for bringing our new employee in as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We're going to go ahead and move down to item number 2. And we actually have folks from the food bank. So if I could ask Miss Jessica to come on up, or excuse me, when did I say? Oh, we're on item number 5. So we do have some staff from the Imperial Valley Food Bank, and we know you do a lot of great work, and I've been meeting with them pretty regularly about some exciting things. So I did encourage them to come before the council and kind of give us a big picture on what's happening at the food bank.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Good afternoon. My name is Jessica Norve with Imperial Valley Food Bank, and we do have a slideshow. I don't know if we can have that playing, please.
That one.
They're just some nice images for you to see kind of what we do within the community.
Yeah, it's Paris,
There we go.
I think. We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
So again, I'm with the Nutrition Education Department, and we go throughout the community from preschools to middle schools, high schools, senior citizens, all over within the community. And we like to raise awareness of obesity and diabetes. And so as you can see with the images here, there's a lot of volunteers that we like to go ahead and have come out to the food bank. We have our distributions that we also participate in. But most importantly, this weekend, Saturday, we're going to be having what's called our summer walkathons. So that's going to be held here at the Imperial Valley Mall. And we encourage a lot of El Centro residents to come out and participate. And so although the temperatures are really hot, you know, we encourage them. It's inside the mall, from Dillard's to Macy's, and for every lap they do, they get a raffle ticket, and they're able to have chances to receive gifts and prizes. So this helps encourage physical activity amongst our residents and community members. And as we're out in the schools and in the community, we advise and promote so that the families can come out and do that as a family activity. So we're really hoping for some support from City of El Centro to help promote and get this going for us.
You know, everybody kind of has a general understanding of what the Imperial Valley Food Bank does, but what the exciting part is to continue to see your mission statement expand.
Yes.
into education, and that's why I thought it'd be important. I know that we all have kind of a general idea what they do, but I wanted to really promote this, this nutrition and this summer walkathon, and so I wanted to give visibility to our entire council, and then maybe even look at developing some sort of collaborative in the future with the food bank, if we're not already, but excellent work. And I do appreciate you coming here. I don't know if there's opportunities, or maybe we can share it on our Facebook page, or anything in relations to promoting some of your activities, but that would be helpful. I don't know if there's any other comments from the council in regards to their upcoming events or any collaboratives you would like to see.
A couple of questions. So what time does it start at IB Mall?
Okay, so I have a flyer upon request,
Excellent.
but Saturday we have the 24th, and it's from 10 to 1.
1, okay, excellent. And I serve on the Harvest Bowl Committee. I
Yes.
think this is like the 5th year, and I want to make sure everybody has that date on their calendars as well. October 14th, and it's going to be in Brawley this year.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions?
If I could just add the other two, July 22nd would be the second one, and Saturday, August 26th would be the third one, all 10 to 1.
And you said you did have that flyer. Did you drop that flyer off with our staff yet, or?
No, I have it here.
Okay. Would it
Or
be
I can
okay
email
if
it.
you maybe leave it with our clerk, and then
Okay.
we'll start sharing it and distributing it?
Sounds great.
And then just keep us posted. You know, we would like to see you quarterly, so if there's anything
Awesome.
that's kind of coming attractions, please come on by. And we're always grateful to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all the hard work that you guys do as well.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Oh, how cute.
All right, thanks again. All right, moving down to, we're gonna go ahead and take item number 6, and we have the police officers, Central Police Officers Association presentation, and we have Mr.
Gustafson and Thompson.
Yes, sir. All right. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor Cardenas and Council. My name is Corey Gustafson. I'm a detective with the El Centro Police Department. For the last 7 years, I've been fortunate enough to serve under what I consider to be the most outstanding and respected command staff, chief of police, and alongside what I consider to be the best officers, not within just the community or the county, but the entire state. During my time at the police department, with the unwavering support of command staff and the entire department, I've been able to generate what I consider to be a respectable resume. I've been selected as a field training officer. I'm certified as a police academy instructor, certified as a firearms and emergency vehicle operation instructor. I'm a current member of the SWAT team, Special Weapons and Tactics. And I've also been detailed on 2 different occasions long-term to federal agencies, once with the Homeland Security Investigations, Border Enforcement Security Task Force, and again to the Drug Enforcement Administration, Major Mexican Traffickers. In my time while being detailed out, I've been fortunate enough to have been the primary case agent on 3 nationally recognized investigations. Based on that, I become certified as an expert in the field of narcotics. I provided expert testimony in both state and federal court. And for the last 2 years, I've been ranked number 1 on the sergeant's promotional eligibility list, next in line to be promoted in the event a sergeant position opens up. But what I'm most proud of is for the last 4 years, I've been a POA board member, Police Officers Association. I've done 3 years as vice president and 13 months as the president. That was up until last week when I announced my resignation from the department and from the Police Officers Association. For I've accepted a job with another department located here in Imperial County. But what's troubling to me, and again, I'm not here on behalf of the Police Officers Association for any personal benefit, but I'm here as a stakeholder and a community member now, is the insight that I have within the police department. I'm one of 4 officers in the last 8 months, 2 of us being detectives, who have transferred out and remained here locally with other departments. And again, I personally know of 5 additional officers who are in the process of transferring out. So again, as a community member, I have concern for this current state of the department. With that, I'd like to turn over to Police Officer James Thompson, who will discuss this further.
Officer Thompson.
Good afternoon. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for giving us the time to provide you with this information. The reason we're here is because we believe that the police department is currently in a crisis, a personnel crisis. We're unable to hire the entry-level officers that we need to staff patrol and other positions. We're also not able to retain senior qualified officers like Officer Gustafson. Losing him is a great loss to the department and the city. We believe that the reason we're having these problems is because we're not able to provide competitive wages and benefits given the marketplace and the industry. Ms. Walker, I listened to your speech at the beginning, or your prayer at the beginning, and you talk about how we need to be aware of what's going on in the world around us, the country, the state. You guys know with AB 109, Prop 47, Prop 57, there's no shortage of criminals. Every year the population of El Centro goes up. Every year our calls for service goes up. The city and you guys, you do wonderful things for us. However, everything that you build, it creates a tax almost on the police department. The bus station, we have to go there almost every day. The skate park, we have issues there. You're talking about building a library and a water park. Those are wonderful things for the community. However, they're going to increase our calls for service. Some of the issues we're dealing with now, and again, I listened to your great words as you talked to our new employee. There's no dispute. I believe it. I think that you guys believe it, that we are the premier agency in the Valley. When we handle our business professionally, we have articles in the newspaper. We provide a quality service to our community that I train with several agencies in San Diego County, much larger. I would compare any of our officers to them because we have to do so much more with less resources. This is where we're at today. Officer Gustafson's spot at DEA that brings in asset forfeiture, he's resigned. We're not able to fill that position. It's going to be frozen. We're going to lose the asset forfeiture. We're also going to lose the assistance of the DEA with some of our criminal investigations. We have a detective spot that just opened up. We're going to have to freeze that and not be able to fill it. We have 2 SED officers that in the last 6 months have brought in over 30 pounds of meth and other drugs and $1.5 million in asset forfeiture. The SED spots are no longer going to be filled after shift rotation because our primary function is patrol and we have to man those positions. It's been discussed that if things continue on the same route that they were on, it's possible we have to pull the other task force officers, which would be an additional loss in asset forfeiture. And even worse, we'd have to pull all 3 of our school resource officers. Now, you guys know that we do get funding from the schools, and it's not a lot, but it does go to the general fund. But what's even worse is that we would lose a police presence at our schools, which everyone knows that they're a key part in keeping our students safe. And again, it's not for any other reason than our primary focus is patrol, and our policy dictates what minimum staffing levels are. Our staff and chief has done an excellent job. Internally, they rearrange our resources to bend over backwards to make our agency professional. But it's come to the point where we can't do it anymore. What's going to happen is we're not going to be able to provide the same professional service to the community, and our community is going to suffer. I mean, I live in this community, so I care greatly about it. And they're going to look at us because we're not able to provide the same professional services. It's not going to be the chief's fault, and it's not going to be the officer's fault, but it's the reality of the situation. Some of the things we're dealing with the city, we have a security guard at Southwest that makes $4 an hour less than our officer that's been here 25 years. My sergeant, he only makes $2 more than me. We have an administrative sergeant at Imperial PD that makes more than some of our commanders. It's been something that's neglected for a long time, and we're starting to see the results of what's going on. We're making you aware of it, and we're asking for more resources.
Thank you. You are under our scheduled presentation. I do want to encourage any comments from the council. I'll go ahead and just start and then kind of end. And I do want to share that this council is very aware of some of the challenges that we have and always try to maintain an open door policy. We're seeing this in a lot of different cities. San Diego probably has a 30% loss in officers that they train, and these types of issues is something that we're addressing and trying to put a plan together. Everything from HR, we're requesting HR to do exit interviews, and it's loud and clear that compensation is an issue. And so now it's just a matter of us potentially developing a plan. When I say us, that's this council, staff, POA, everybody kind of coming together and seeing what we can do to focus on retention, recruitment, and so that's kind of where we're at. But I mean, it is being discussed, and it's something that is an absolute priority for this council when it comes. It's all over our strategic plan. You know, it's in our blueprint as far as where public safety ranks, and it's something that we're going to need your help on. We need your input. Having you come over here and be professional and having the support is huge. We welcome that. We want to hear from you. This council is pro safety. I mean, that's all we spend a lot of time talking about public safety. So those are kind of my opening comments. I'm going to kind of give a chance for my colleagues to share, and then I'll come back and close. So, Councilmember Jackson, do you want to start, or?
Sure. In the last few months, I've been approached by several of our officers, basically telling me the same thing that you've told us today. I think we understand that there is an issue. We've had conversations. We had a conversation today about some potential things that we could put in place. I had a long conversation with our chief last week about what I discussed today in closed session regarding some ideas that maybe could help our staffing levels. So it's not something that has been not spoken about. You know, realize action isn't as fast as we'd all like to see it. It's disappointing to see good officers like Corey and some of the other officers that we've lost lately to other agencies, especially when they stay local. But we are trying to address it. We are looking at it. Unfortunately, you know, we have some hurdles that make it difficult for us to address a lot of the issues that we want to address. Today, we're gonna go through our budget, which I don't think it's any secret that we are in a deficit situation, and not because we are spending on frivolous things, not because we're wasting money, but because there are costs that we don't have control over that come from the state, whether it's CalPERS or workers' comp or general liability insurance increases. And so there are things that, you know, we don't have complete control over. But I will say that it is a point of conversation. We are trying to look at different ways to address the staffing levels. I think, like I said, last week, Chief and I had a very good discussion about some potential fixes for that, and there was some open discussion today, this afternoon about it, and I think we're going to continue that conversation. I appreciate the fact that the POA has taken a position to come forward and have an open discussion about what the needs of the department are, and more importantly, what the needs of our community are. So an open dialogue is good and healthy, and I think it's better to have it open like this than a lot of the unfortunate, sometimes we have a lot of rumor mill, backdoor talk, things like that. So I personally appreciate, and I think my colleagues do too, the fact that you're here together as a group, as an organization, and being open and transparent with the needs of the department. So we'll continue to work on, you know, some of the things that we talked about today, and hopefully we can resolve some of these issues for you guys.
Councilmember Silva?
Thank you. And I just want to add that what Mr. Jackson just said, that I really appreciated the professionalism of your presentation, in that you're coming to us with the problem, but you're also coming to us in a way that makes me feel like we can work together on this. And you use the word crisis, and I'm sure you did not use that word lightly. I think that if that's how you feel,
No, sir,
we
that's
are.
the reality.
Right. And so I appreciate that. I also will tell you that I am committed, as well as my colleagues, to finding a resolution to this, because we can't be short-sighted. If we continue on the path that we are, it's short-sighted of us, because the consequences and the costs will multiply over time as officers continue to leave for better opportunities. But I kind of gathered from your comments that it's basically a wage and benefits issue.
That's our belief after taking a look at the retention of senior officers, well-trained officers. Our department is excellent at training professional officers, And there's no mechanism in place, no longevity pay to keep them here. Every time I go train with El Cajon, they ask me, hey, you got any more officers you want to give us? Because everyone that comes over here is great.
Right.
And, you know, it makes me feel good because we make good officers, but I would rather keep them. So
So let me ask this question. I'm not sure if you're prepared to answer this right now, but do you have a sense over how far off we might be percentage-wise?
roughly, and I know it's not reasonable to compare our agency to agencies outside the valley. However, given that everyone agrees we're the premier agency, I think there should be some percentage greater than the surrounding agencies.
Okay.
I didn't feel it was appropriate to talk numbers at this meeting.
Okay.
However, if given the opportunity, we would be prepared to provide what we think would help assist us in the problems.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Oh, I want to echo that we really appreciate the professionalism demonstrated and the understanding that it is a quality of life issue, right? We can't shut down the parks, we can't shut down the library, we can't stop doing everything. We want to provide a full package to our citizens. This is a national crisis. It's a national crisis trying to attract and retain talent. I never thought in my lifetime that I would see what's happened to police departments throughout this country, ever. And the lack of respect and is just, I still can't get my arms around, I can't get my head around the whole shift in the dynamic of being a police officer and what that means and the reaction from the public. And I agree with you, California has done some really crazy things to make your job that much harder, and not just your job, but probation department and everything else. And I think Sacramento is trying to finally figure out that maybe some of the tinkering that they've done to get themselves out of a jam with regard to federal lawsuits and things having to do with the prison populations has just made your job that much worse and has impacted our communities in really, really negative ways. All that being said, I think the silver lining in this is that we do have a premier department that affords opportunities that move people into leadership roles in other agencies and floats all boats, right? That's a silver lining. But I do agree, and I think we're all committed to figuring out what it is that we can do to retain the best and recruit the best. And you have our solid commitment to doing that.
Thank you.
Officer Thompson, first I'd like to start off by thanking you and the POA for being well represented, coming out here and addressing us in a very professional manner. It's very concerning what you're telling us. It's extremely concerning. We all live here. We all care about our community. It's great to have our officers invested in living here. And I'd like to also say thank you very much for all of your years of service, Detective Gustafson, and I wish you the best in your new endeavors. It's a shame to see you go, but again, that's the main concern that I have, especially what he echoed, that there are officers down the line that are looking at going, and we need to keep our talent here, especially if we are training, great officers, and we have a core of senior officers that are looking at other options. So that's something that we are taking extremely serious with the council. And that's something that we are looking at options to see what we can propose to try to essentially plug the hole. We want to stop that losing those officers. And I know we train great officers. We got to get new ones in the door as well. But keeping a core of senior officers that can move up to command eventually, and that's very important. And that's very concerning to me that we seem to be losing those officers. So it's something that we're working on, and we would like to have more discussions with you regarding the financial implications of what those proposals could be, so we could start a dialogue and possibly solve this problem. Because bottom line, you men and women who are out there on the line, you guys know what you guys need in terms of resources, and you know what it's going to take to keep your officers happy. And that we want to keep the reputation of our department.
Absolutely.
It can change overnight.
Mm-hmm.
If I could say one thing before.
Go ahead, Officer.
If you guys when you walk away from this, if you could just think about one thing. Officer Gustafson has worked for us for 9 years. He has a small child and a wife, and he's invested a lot in this community, and he's also invested a lot into his training and his job at the police department. We have talks of sergeants leaving this year, and he's a very smart guy. He's an intelligent guy. He was pretty much guaranteed a spot as a sergeant with our department as long as someone left. And instead, he looked at the future here at this department, and instead he's going to basically start his career over after 9 years to go work for another agency. Now, I hope that hits home with everyone here, because in the middle of his career, he's choosing to start over rather to continuing to invest it, even when he was pretty much guaranteed a spot that we're all working for. So.
Yeah.
So, Officer, I'm just in closing, I want to say something about our police chief. And our Chief Medueño is one of your strongest advocates. When he comes to the table, when he comes to the council, all he does is give praise about the work that you guys do, and when it comes to our community. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate Chief Medueño, and also understand that he is your greatest advocate when it comes to just the overall condition of the department. So I do want to thank you, Chief, for your leadership in that area. I did reach over and talk to our attorney, because there is a silver lining. The silver lining is that we have given staff specific direction on certain matters, and I can't go into the context of it because of the closed session, but I'm here to tell you we're not giving you lip service. There is specific action that we requested from staff when it comes to certain situations. And I want to just say, I think our council, and again, I appreciate you guys always keeping us posted and keeping us current on the conditions, but as a council, we want to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to understanding your needs. So there is action behind this. So I'm hoping that staff will come back and report to us on what that direction was, and then we will be thinking of a way that we can communicate that back down to the POA.
And if you
Or
guys,
to employees in general. Go ahead.
and if you ever need anything from the POA, we're more than happy to,
Yeah.
assist you in gathering information or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, if I can just add,
Yes.
so I think that, I strongly believe that we have to have the mechanisms to make it so people would stay and not leave. I think that we have to do that. On the other side, it's just so that you know, and you're probably aware of this already, I know the chief is, that IBC, I'm a dean at IBC, but in a different division, that it's really close to becoming a full post academy, really close,
Level 1?
level 1.
Yes.
So that's going to allow our own residents to be able to put themselves through the academy. It will allow people to keep their day job and go to school at night and complete their academy. So I think that there will be a new pool of applicants, and not have to go away and be housed and all that kind of stuff. So I think from a recruitment of new officers, there's a light at the end of the tunnel to Imperial Valley College becoming fully post-certified. But we still have to do the other stuff. I think that we still have to, we don't want them to come in and then leave.
Right.
We want them to come in and then stay with us and make it a career in the city of El Centro.
Thank you again for your
No,
time.
thank you. Thank you guys for being here. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you guys for your comments and staff. We're going to go ahead and move down to, I believe it was item number 3 that I moved down behind item number 6. So I'm going to ask Ms. Norma Villacaña to come on up.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the council. I'm very excited to be here before you. We always discuss issues with code enforcement, what can we do, how much can we do. But tonight, I want to acknowledge and introduce a member of the community who has taken on 2 projects which have been under code enforcement, and I want to recognize Mr. Carlos Vasquez. He's in the audience, and basically he's the gentleman that purchased, as you recall, 202 and 204 Maple. And just recently he purchased, there was an abandoned home just next to the property, the Maple property, and I'll show you some photographs of it. and he has plans on, I think he demolished, did you demolish the property? It's demolished, and he's gonna be building multifamily units in that area. So I just wanted to recognize Mr. Vasquez and introduce him to the council and maybe show you a few photographs.
Photographs are going to be amazing.
Good evening, council members. I am a member of the community, also an IVC student many years ago. I want to give a special thanks to law enforcement because there was a very problematic property for me. I think we all know the history down with those properties that's happened in the past, but I was given, working with code enforcement and law enforcement, being very responsive to the issues that were happening. Most of it was, it was an abandoned house, so there was a lot of foot traffic, and foot traffic that no neighbor would want in their neighborhood. So, and that's it. I mean, I did purchase a property next door, knowing that this was a risk to my investment. So when the opportunity came up and I knew this property was for sale, I jumped on it, and luckily I was able to purchase a property. As you can see here, there was a lot of foot traffic. The property was filled with trash, and it was 4 dumpster loads to be able to clean this property out. The neighbors in the entire area were cheering us on as we were demolishing cleaning up the property. I even had to, they were using the alleyway as a dumpster in between, east of that property, which we went ahead and cleaned up because they were using it to dump mattresses, refrigerators, trash, and what have you. So now it's, I'm glad it's completely knocked down, it's cleaned up. You can see the property east. I mean, it's essentially a nice property, fully remodeled, and my tenants are happy, the neighbors are happy, but this was all with help of really the code enforcement and the police officers that helped out, run off the people who were living there. I hate to say it. Now the foot traffic has, it's pretty much come to an end. And I just hope that nobody does illegal dumping on my property now that it's cleaned up. But I just want to say thanks, and I look forward on working with the city to develop some apartments in the future when the time permits.
Thank you, and I'll again refer to our council for just any general comments, but I do appreciate the comments in regards to public safety and code enforcement. Anna, Frank, they do a great job, and again, I wish we can give them some more resources, but they're amazing folks, and I appreciate you taking the investment in our community and your comments. And then with that, I'll open it up to the council for comments.
So some of these worst-case scenarios are properties that we've tracked through the Community Enhancement Task Force for a number of years. And with all of the local really bad publicity that we've had, the Community Enhancement Committee Task Force thought that it would be a great idea to start recognizing some of our community members who have really stepped up and benefited the community by taking care of some of these, I guess these would be considered some of the top 10 properties that we've really targeted to get started and get moving on. And so extremely grateful for your investment in getting that work done, and both here and the property adjacent. So thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Any other comments?
Maybe just want to add that, you're doing at least 2 things for us. One is you cleaning up a property that sorely needed to be cleaned up. It's a complete disaster. And then with your development of the apartment units, creating affordable housing in El Centro, which also is a major problem that we try to find ways to resolve it. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And then, if there's no other comments, or did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, well, Mr. Silva kind of stole my thunder on that, but
Yeah.
I was to say that we do need more of affordable homes and housing in the city of El Centro, and The fact that you're willing to invest, into our community says a lot, and very much appreciated. And heard some very good comments from Norma and staff and their dealings with you and these properties. So thank you very much for doing your investment here in El Centro.
Thanks.
Just, Ms., am I hearing that, well, number one, Ms. Villacana, I appreciate you bringing them up. I think that's huge. And am I hearing that maybe we'll be bringing other folks along and sharing with the council?
Yes, we will.
Excellent.
We'll do our best to, we had another project, but unfortunately, the property owner was not able to be here tonight. So we'll get him on board next time.
Do we
Excellent.
by chance have those photographs or no?
Not at this time.
All right. Well, thank you again, sir, for the investment. Thank you, Ms. Villacana, for sharing that with us. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to go ahead and move down to the consent item agenda, and we have items, oh gosh, I rolled over this. Seven. We have items seven through 17 on the consent item agenda. So is there any council member that wishes to pull any item regarding consent? Being that there's none, I would go ahead and entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. All right, have a motion from Councilmember Garcia, second from Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker. We'll go ahead and vote. And the consent agenda is approved 5-0. I'm gonna go ahead and take some things out of context a little bit. I know we do have some visitors here, and I'm gonna ask Mr. Hagan or Mr. Abraham we're gonna go ahead and look at item 21, because I believe we do have a consultant here. And then right after 21, we're gonna look at item number 22. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Campos regarding item number 20.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before we begin this item, you have 3 council members who have potential conflicts of interest.
Okay.
In order to have a quorum of the council able to participate, the city clerk will need to conduct a proceeding where you draw cards. Under the rule of necessity, 2 of the council members who don't get the winning card will be asked, unfortunately, to step perhaps outside or in another room.
Okay.
And the 3rd can proceed to vote on the item.
Okay, and just for the record, this is in regards to item number 21, which is the,
Lighting plan,
huh?
the lighting
Oh,
plan,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. It's the discussion necessary action regarding the adoption of the El Centro citywide lighting master plan. Do we have the straws ready, or?
We have cards.
All right.
We just need to decide high card stays or low
Aye.
card leaves. What's your preference? Or do you want me to choose?
All right.
I think you do it.
Who's declaring, who's declaring conflict?
So my house, my residence is in the 600 block of Sandalwood, and under this proposal, there would be lights placed in the alley, so that would be my potential conflict.
Both my home and my business fall under this.
And my business falls in the same.
Okay.
Because that's why it's a master plan.
Yeah, so we're drawing cards. So we're gonna go high card?
High card will remain on the council and low card will leave.
Okay.
And I have the key to
recused.
Diane's office. I'm not standing out there in the 122. We think there should be a 122-degree exception to
I think
having
you
to leave.
could step into the back if there's somewhere to sit.
This back
honestly.
room here?
Yeah, I
Where
really
the
think
food
that's
is?
okay. Yeah, I think that's fine. It's not like you can participate.
Okay, then. Pick a card, any card.
That works out okay. I get to stay in the cool air.
I get to stay by the food.
Damn it, here.
Here.
Oh.
Is that high or low?
I don't know. Ace is high, isn't it?
There you go.
I know, I'm kind of going for the food, so maybe I can go low.
Can we go?
You, both of them have to leave? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You only need one.
All right.
You want the ace back?
We could just stay by the
I think you can. I don't really see any reason you can't.
All right, now I believe we do have a quorum, and we'll move forward with item number 21.
All right, good evening, Honorable Mayor and council members. I'm excited to bring forward a master plan that we've been working together with the Community Enhancement Task Force for quite some time now. We hired Kimberly Horn to help us move through this and trying to look holistically at the city, how we can improve lighting throughout in a cost-effective manner. And we have our consultant, Pete Syntax from Kimberly Horn, who will be doing a presentation for you.
Thank you, Mayor, Councilman. My name is Pete Syntax. I'm with Kimley Horn. I was brought aboard to look at the city's street lighting in its entirety. What we did, I'm going to go over the background of some of the studies we looked at, our general recommendations, and then critical areas that we would potentially turn into CIPs in the future. So what we did was we got all the street lights through the GIS database system, and then we worked with local PD to get all the crime rates and high crime areas, and we evaluated them like the nighttime crime compared to street lights. We looked at specific areas, residential, commercial, industrial, and then we tried to establish some critical path items that for the city. One major thing that we noticed, originally the discussion is, hey, streetlights can reduce crime and hopefully make the city nicer. There was a 2008 study done by the Department of Justice that basically said, streetlights definitely help neighborhoods, they help the community, but they don't necessarily reduce crime. A prime example of this is on Imperial. It's actually maintained by Caltrans, is your highest crime rate, and you have the most lights there. So what we tried to do, what we did was we're going to provide general recommendations for the city guidelines. This is like moving forward. And then we identified areas that maybe we need to go back and revisit that are already existing. So right now, one of the residential, we identified 3 areas: residential, commercial, and industrial. So right now, the existing lights are typically just at intersections. There's usually one light there. There's not any mid-block lighting. And typically alleyways, we discuss, are hotspots for crime or trash and things like that. So one of the things we didn't want to do was add a bunch of lights in front of houses, because that doesn't really necessarily solve the problem, and I'm sure a lot of people would be annoyed. So one of our recommendations is that you put a light on the existing power pole in the alleyway. Again, what that does is it's very cost effective. You're only adding a single light, you're not taking away from the frontage, and you're also helping deter people from throwing trash out there and things like that, or police can respond in a dark alley. It's not a dark alley. Commercial, there is no street light standard for the commercial street lights, and that's any commercial modifications to public right-of-way. So if you have a new building going in and they're gonna put in a sidewalk, we're gonna recommend that you have a standard in place that says they're gonna have to add X amount of street lights. This, over a period of time, will help improve the lighting, street lighting in those areas. Now, we're not expecting the city to go out there and do this everywhere. It's way too costly. But ideally, the developer coming in would bear this cost. We're recommending to do about 150 to 175 foot standard with your current light fixtures. That's pretty, it's very similar to San Diego. It's very similar to LA. One thing I want to bring up right now is I call it high pressure sodium. That's the yellow lights out there that you currently have. We did look at LED, but LED doesn't really make sense because you pay a rate for IID to maintain your lights. So IID doesn't have a negotiated rate for LED, so they're going to charge you just as much for the high pressure sodium as they would the LED, but you're going to pay more for the fixture. So it didn't really behoove us to go look at LED. And we can go back and look at LED in the future, but I think that's a much whiter light, and out here just the aesthetics and everything is tied to everything's yellow light. Although you will drive down the road and you see in shopping centers where people put in LEDs and they're white. So,
Are LED lights by definition brighter than yellow lights, or is are they the same in terms of brightness?
actually, they're both the same amount of brightness. The difference is what's called the color temperature. So the yellow isn't as hard on your eyes as the white. So that's why it appears brighter, but you still end up with the same light level. So our recommendation for commercial alleyways is to add additional light fixtures on the existing power poles. Again, we're not talking about putting in a lot of infrastructure. We're not talking about putting putting a lot of money into this. We're talking about existing power poles. IID will come out there, they'll mount it, and then you pay your monthly rate on it. This was actually recently done behind Main Street there, and from initial conversations, everyone seems to enjoy it. Industrial. So it was funny, we went and go look at all the crime rates in industrial areas at night, and they weren't many. Most of them were during the day, for whatever reason. So again, we kind of follow in the same process where any future industrial clients come in, developers come in, we want them to improve the frontage along the road. So we would generate a standard that allows them to, or puts the onus on them to put in the lights. Those are our general recommendations moving forward. Some of our critical areas, we call it CIP, capital improvement projects, but our critical areas are areas we identified as high crime, can use improvement. These areas are up for discussion. There are some areas that have higher priority than others. We're showing right here, this is off Woodward and 8th. They have quite a bit of crime. I didn't do it, I swear.
That's all right.
No. Yeah, so along Woodward and 8th, there's a large amount of crime. And ideally, we would, in those areas where we do have high crime rate, there's a couple things we tried to identify. One, can we add lights there? Two, is it an actual lighting issue? Or is it an abandoned house that's generating the high crime? Not really, whether or not you have street lights wouldn't impact that. So here along Woodward and 8th, there seems to be a lot of high crime in this area. For whatever reason, there's a lot of apartment complexes in this area as well. And so our recommendation was to add additional lighting in this area. We have two costs with each one. One's underground cost, that's if we have to bring the infrastructure in. One is an overhead cost, that's assuming our electrical utility poles nearby and we can just string wires overhead, which is pretty typical. We also have the high crime rate on Commercial Ave between 6th Street and 7th Street. Again, one of our recommendations here is to add lights in the front, but also the alleyway mid-block at this location. Again, these are areas that have high crime rate that we compared with the PDGIS map and are abnormally high.
Question, in regards to the undergrounding and overhead, is there a difference in overall long-term maintenance on either or?
Yes. So overhead is maintained by IID. Underground would be maintained by the city. And the benefit of underground, though, is that from a timing standpoint, you can do it much faster. If you want to do overhead, you have to coordinate with IID to go get easements so that they can string their wire across that property line to that light pole. And so it adds time to the process.
Okay, thank you.
Right here at 6th and is it, I think Wheel Estates. This is right where the baseball stadium is there, and there's actually an intersection there with no lighting at all. And there tends to be high crime here. This is a simple add. You add a street light where there's high crime, where there's an intersection.
Can I ask you a question? On the last two slides, you are suggesting that we add one light in the middle of the block, whereas the recommendations prior to the last two, I saw 2 lights in each block, 2 new lights in each block. So there's one there, and then here you see 2, and the one prior to that, you also see 2. What are the determining factors whether you are recommending 1 additional or 2 additionals?
We're trying to maintain 200 feet spacing, but we're also trying to line it up with driveways and property lines. Mm-hmm. So we're kind of sliding them in some ways. So here you have 2 per block, 2 per block. This is mid-block just because of how the spacing works out in distance.
So these are shorter blocks by...
Shorter blocks,
okay.
yeah. Let's see here, yeah, baseball, there's an intersection there, high crime. We can add a fixture to an existing power pole, and it's done. Pretty easy. This is along the highway. There's that canal back there. There's existing power poles back there. Now, this spacing isn't ideal, but what we want is there's no lights right there. There's no lights along that canal there. If you look at all the walls, they're all vandalized. There's a bunch of trash and stuff. Ideally, if we can just add a couple lights back there, even though it's larger than normal spacing, just to kind of deter transients and people hanging out back there. This is a typical commercial alleyway we were talking about. If you look, those poles are existing power poles. The yellow around are all the existing lights. This is still a high crime area, and you have a lot of lighting. This kind of goes back to our general recommendation that you put lighting on existing power poles and alleyways. Because even though there's a lot of lighting here, there's still a large crime, and alleys tends to be the primary concern in this area. Again, same thing here. One thing to note, though, is that a lot of what we're trying to do, if you look here in this area, is that the existing lights are at existing intersections. They're already there. We're not trying to add more lights to those. We're just trying to address areas that are of concern and that are cost effective. So mounting lights to existing power poles are very cost effective. If we have to add a bunch of lights mid-block and everything, then it's substantial cost to the project.
Can you go back one?
Absolutely.
So why do you not have any new lights on Olive? That's the top street there. You have 4 on the Alleyway, but only, so it doesn't require new lights in the middle of the street?
Yeah, so again, we can add lights here, but we're trying to pick the cost-effective solution, and we think the cost-effective solution in this area is to add it down the alleyway.
The alleyway.
Again, as we add light, like if you look, what's hard to see is scale, right? Before we're talking about, I'm gonna jump back a little bit real fast. Before we're talking, okay, this block is like 300 feet or 450 feet, so we're adding 1 light. This block is 153, 6, almost 900 to 1,000 feet. So we're adding a lot more cost. Mm-hmm. Again, it goes back to that report that says that the U.S. Department of Justice did, says streetlights don't eliminate crime. They do create a better community, but they don't necessarily deter crime. And so we're just trying to be cost effective and consistent.
I have a question regarding this slide. So kind of piggybacking on Mr. Silva's question is, we have 2 reported crimes on Olive, but yet we're not recommending any light to address that? Not that one, the next slide.
Yeah, to give you a scale, that the reported crime, those are more than 10 in that area over a 3-year period. Probably should have said that up front. What we did was if we had an area that had 1 crime in it over the last 3 years, we didn't focus on that. We focused on areas that had high crime. So more than 10 crimes over a 3-year period.
So each one of these, we'll call lightning bolts, is representative of 10 or more?
Over a period of 3 years, yes.
Okay, so reinforcing my question even more so now, we're looking at Olive with at least 20 reported crimes in 3 years with no lights. We have the Alleyway with at least 10, and we're proposing 5.
Yeah, this is one location. I think you're right. We could add a couple mid-block lights in front of on Olive.
Okay. I think that would be smart to do.
This is another example of how you have between 12th and Imperial, where you have a lot of lighting, but you still have high crime. So our consistent recommendation is you're adding lighting to existing power poles for the alleyways to help out. So again, right Adams between 8th and 12th. We have a lot of high crime on Adams. You have lots of lights. Again, we fall back to that, okay, what can we do to help? And we go back to, okay, it's very cost effective if we're gonna add streetlights to existing power poles along Park, and hope that that helps just the community, police response, and transients from hanging out there.
The exact spots where you have the lightning bolts, is that strategic? Does that represent that those crimes were reported on that specific area of the street, or why did you put them there?
Okay, we put them there because what we did was we tied it back to addresses. The PD has a massive database of crimes, and so they all have addresses and types of crime. So we took out all the crimes that occurred during the day, all the non-violent crimes. An example is like Walmart had a lot of crimes, but that was more like petty theft kind of thing. It wasn't violent crimes. So then we took those and we said, okay, what are areas that are high crime? And then we looked at 10 or more within a 3-year period. And these are the critical spots that we found. And as you can see here, we're recommending adding light on the existing power poles, but we don't know that that's going to really solve the problem. It's more, goes back to more, becomes an enforcement issue than a street lighting issue. On Dogwood Road over here is the industrial zone, but there's a couple alleyways that have reported a bunch of crime, were high crime areas. And so what we did is there's already existing streetlights at Orange and Olive, and we were going to recommend we add alleyway lights in this location as well. Again, a cost-effective solution. It may not eliminate crime, but it does provide some additional lighting. These are some areas that I want to show as an example, but it kind of goes back to the earlier conversations and everything about there are some areas that have high crime rate, but they're tied to code enforcement. There are abandoned houses and things like that where we can add a bunch of streetlights there, but we're really not solving the problem. And so we tried to take a look at those areas specifically and remove those from the recommendations. So what we did is we looked at adding all the existing residential alleyways, one light mid-block, adding commercial alleyways, lights every 150 feet in the alleys, and then we looked at identifying the cost tied with each specific scenario where we have high crime rate. Obviously, if we're going to add the Olive Avenue, we'll add some additional costs. But you can see here, obviously we got a cost, and then we put some contingency and things like that in there. But this ends up being the biggest takeaway I wanted you guys to understand is that I think the biggest takeaway is moving forward, that we set the standard for new development and new, upgrades and things like that, and we put the onus on the developers. And over time, you'll get that consistent lighting, and it takes time.
The only comment I know, we haven't built houses here, rooftop, in 10 years. So, it's easier said than done to put that. So that's the only reservation that I have is, that we still continue to be developer friendly, but at the same time provide the lighting that we need. Again, we haven't had rooftop development here in 10 years. We're looking at some rooftop development here really, really soon. I heard San Diego, I heard LA. I just want to make sure that what we're adopting tonight or our master plan is aligned with comparable municipalities. Are you comfortable in your recommendations that these are going to be developer friendly type of opportunities and still attract the housing development that we need?
Absolutely. We've done this master plan, similar one for several different municipalities. This is right in line with theirs. The big difference here that we didn't have elsewhere is that we really took a lot of time, energy, and effort to look at it, how it related to crime. Normally, we just look at it, hey, we want to meet a certain standard light level. This is what we need to do to get there. This is the onus we're going to put on the developer. We took this a lot further and going, okay, yeah, that's fine moving forward, but what are we going to do? What can we do with what we have today. And I am very comfortable with the proposal here in front of you.
Now, as far as chasing the revenue or chasing the monies for the project, I did see in the backup that CDBG would be an option, but, you know, we don't know what's happening with CDBG, and that's kind of at risk right now. Any other recommendations on where we can pursue funding for the implementation of the project or the proposals?
Talk about that part.
All right, so yes, in short is we can use LTA to cover some of these
Okay.
expenses. But I would, if I may, I want to touch base on some of the concerns that I heard. I heard a lot of why are we focusing on that? It's not in the front of the streets in some areas, in crime areas, and I take those to heart. So when we're implementing this, we already have the data from the exhibits here and where the high priority areas or critical areas are. We can take a second look and prioritize those locations and add streetlights where needed. Now, when we were developing this, we worked it together with a community enhancement task force as well with PD and the crime data, and recognizing that lighting doesn't solve crime, it helps, but it doesn't solve it. We looked at the most cost-effective way of doing this, and I'll give you an example. On downtown Main Street lighting, we're investing $1 million on an underground system, because underground, some of the costs are not or may not be fully developed here is in inflations, designs, construction management, contingencies, all that, which may add up to new poles and underground poles, and creating all this. Even if they're taking the decorative factor out of the downtown lighting, which is two streets basically for 4 blocks, you would bring it down to maybe 700,000. So it's very expensive to go and add poles, steel poles, which has been the past practice. What we're trying to do here is recognize the available budget and our funding sources and see what can we do to do the most. And we're recognizing that IID has really low rates to install lights right now. This prices, if IID changes those rates, this master plan would grow in cost for the city. But right now they have really low cost. It's about $1,200 to add a light on a pole. And in this plan we're talking about somewhere around 190 lights that we would need. So it's affordable. It's going through the IID and put it on existing poles. The other thing I want to look at is in our past practice, we were always recommending steel poles and looking away from adding poles on wood poles because lights on wood poles because of the aesthetics perhaps. But now if the concern is to add safety and lighting, I think we should look forward and maybe in industrial areas or areas that are not high priority visibility areas, but we do require the safety. We're encouraging now using our existing facilities and our existing poles to add lights, and that's a very cost-effective way to doing it. I also heard about in line with development and development friendly. I know that's of high value to the city, and this would basically only formalize existing procedures. We're not adding more lights than we were doing before. This would just make it better for us to have something to point at, as opposed to at staff level saying we want so many lights and making it sound like it's Christmas and we're asking for things from developers. This doesn't change the standards or the practices that we're already doing. It doesn't make residential development to put more lights than there already are. We're basically aligning with what's out there right now and making it a standard.
Excellent. Okay, any other comments or suggestions, recommendations before I put it to vote, or anything else you want to share?
It's
Good.
been awesome working with the city, I'll tell you
Okay.
that much.
All right. Well, again, we do appreciate law enforcement's support and effort in that, and at this point, if there's no other questions, well, let me go ahead and bring that back to council. Any other questions from council in regards to this?
No question, but I do want to say that that was a really good report. Very thorough, easy to read, easy to understand. The identification of the problems with the recommendations, and they all didn't seem that expensive.
We're trying.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated that. So just want to say great job on the report.
Thank you.
So with that being said, thank you again to Mr. Campos and Mr. Hagan, and thank you for your recommendations. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and bring this back to council. This is item number 21, and it's discussion necessary action regarding the adoption of the El Centro citywide Lighting Master Plan. Do have the adoption of, or considering the adoption of resolution number 17 dash, I'm sorry? 53, which reads, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro to adopt the El Centro Citywide Lighting Master Plan and City of El Centro Street Lighting Policies and Standards. With that, we do have a motion from Councilmember Jackson, second from Silva. Councilmember Silva will go ahead and vote. And that is,
The motion carries 3-0. If you would like to push abstain on the other two, and it'll appear.
okay, and that carries 3-0 with 2 abstaining. So thank you very much. Thank you for that work. So come on back. All right, I am going to take, I did have a suggestion to take a public comment. Is this public comment? Do we have somebody that has public comment, Norma?
Yes, we do. Nicole Ochoa?
Sorry about that, Ms. Ochoa.
No worries, no worries. Good afternoon, Mayor Cardenas, or good evening, Mayor Cardenas and Mayor, members of the council. My name is Nicole Ochoa. I'm the Market Development Manager for Renovate America's Hero PACE program, supporting communities here in Imperial County. I'm here just to give you a quick update on what we've been doing here in the city of El Centro and to share with you some of the enhancements that we've made to our program. I've also brought a small folder of information that I will leave here with the clerk for each of you. So first on what we've been doing here in the city, we've helped over 130 homeowners invest $1.8 million in improving and upgrading their properties. That's $3.2 million in economic stimulus for the city, which equates to over 16 jobs created and retained here locally. These improvements also translate to about 24 million kilowatt hours of energy savings and over 6,000 tons of emission reductions, which is equivalent to removing over 1,000 SUVs off the road for a year. Now, in addition to statutory changes, which we advocated for last year through AB 2693, which put additional mortgage level disclosures and consumer protections into PACE, I wanted to give you an update on some other changes to the program. We now confirm terms on 100% of all homeowners on a live recorded phone call prior to signing any financing documents. This will essentially take the contractor out of the equation from steering the customer to PACE if it doesn't make sense for them. We've also implemented a new contractor quality rating system that utilizes project and complaint data to objectively evaluate the contractors with whom we work with. So contractors that have complaints and don't work to fix them will be suspended or terminated from HERO. In the last 6 months, we've stopped doing business with 80-plus contractors as a result of implementing this new system. But the system really builds on our years of work improving the home improvement marketplace, and there's no other form of financing that provides protections like this. Lastly, we've also rolled out a new lower set of interest rates that contractors can offer, and the goal is to lower monthly payments for homeowners. There is more great things happening, but I want to make sure I'm respecting your time. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer those.
We do appreciate you coming. I know you have a long drive back, and again, I do appreciate you taking the time to keep us up to date. Any questions from council in regards to the HERO program or any updates?
I know one of the things that we've been tracking is the pending litigation with regard to the Renovate America and different things. And so I'm wondering if our city attorney or if you perhaps, I think the last we had been told was that it had been submitted and we were waiting for a court ruling with regard to certain allegations with regard to the program. So I don't know if you
Sure.
had an
I mean,
update.
just to provide a little bit of background, there are 3 similar lawsuits that have been filed against Renovate America, and they have not been certified as class action lawsuits. They assert statutory violations related to disclosures, documentation, fees, and rely primarily on the contention of, or that the Federal Truth in Lending Act should be applied to property assessed clean energy. As you may know, It is a property tax assessment, and it's not to be treated like a mortgage loan. So Renovate America and its partners recently moved to dismiss the lawsuits, which have caused the plaintiffs to dramatically scale back their claims related to the central argument of the suits about the Truth in Lending Act. So earlier this month, or last month rather, a judge heard our motion to dismiss, and we expect a ruling in the next few weeks or so. So I'm happy to come back and report back on any updates.
That would
on
be great.
Sure.
Excellent. Any other comments or questions? All right. With that being said, thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Safe travels.
All right, thank you so much.
We do very much appreciate you being here.
Again, I do apologize for jumping around on this agenda, but I do want to I also want to bring item number 22. So if I can maybe have Ms. Villacana start, is she here? Yeah, start making her way up. And so we're going to go ahead and tackle item number 22, which is discussion and/or action on issues related to the implementation of adult use of the Marijuana Act. And I also believe, do we have some public comments in relations to that item?
Yes, we do, Mayor.
How many comments do we have?
Just one.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and hear your comments, and we do have a statement that was given to us. So we'll go ahead and hear your comments after Ms. Villacana's presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. The item before you is an item that has been discussed several times before you. And this is this time around, it's the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. And I'll just briefly go through the background. As you know, November 8th, the California voters passed Proposition 64, which basically allows adults 21 years or older to possess, plant, and cultivate up to 6 plants for personal use. If you recall also, back in November of last year, the City Council adopted an ordinance regulating the personal indoor cultivation and prohibiting outdoor cultivation of marijuana. And as you know, we have until January 1st, 2008, prior to January 1st, 2018, jurisdictions should have ordinances in place whether stating whether they wish to regulate or prohibit marijuana sales, commercial activities within their cities. There's been a lot going on since November of last year. The latest is SB 94, which was approved, I believe, last week. And I was discussing this with the city attorney, and I don't think neither her nor I have had a chance to go over some of the changes. But basically what I can gather is that what they're doing now is they're combining both the medical use and the recreational use into one regulatory system. So now it's going to call the Medicinal and Adult Use Cannabis Regulation and Safety Act. So I just wanted to bring that up because this just happened last week. So what we have done after passage of Prop 64, if you recall, an ad hoc committee consisting of Council Members Silva and Garcia, along with staff, we worked on trying to come up with some kind of regulatory framework to address and to come back with this to City Council with a recommendation. Some of the issues that we discussed and consider were whether to allow medical retail sales only or also allow the recreational use retail sales. We also discussed cultivation, manufacturing, testing, distribution, and delivery of cannabis. So after working with the ad hoc committee, the consensus was that we should move forward and allow only medical retail sales in the city. So part of the discussion is that we have before you, because there's been so many changes happening after Prop 64, we need further direction to go back and draft the ordinances and come back before you with a final draft. the first item on the agenda is whether it is the consensus of the council that we should move forward with just limiting, allowing just medicinal cannabis sales within the city. And if that is the case, there's several types of licenses that can be issued. Should we allow what we call a Type 10 license, which basically allows for the general retail of the cannabis? And then there's also a micro business license, which basically it's a business under 10,000 square feet that would allow the cultivation, manufacturing, and selling of cannabis within that site.
You know, where does edibles fall in terms of for municipal purposes? Is edibles under manufacturing, or where, if someone's going to manufacture, or if someone's going to dispense edibles, but they want to do bake it, or I'm not sure what they do with it, but where would that fall
I
under?
believe that's under manufacturing.
Okay.
It's treated the same as production of any other cannabis product.
And then in the areas of mobile dispensaries, if we were to move forward with a medical or a medical cannabis dispensary situation, we would still ban mobile dispensaries, or what would be the?
Well, that's one of the changes that I believe the new SB 94 has. It allows for non-storefront sales. So the way I understand that is it would be a mobile dispensary.
Can we ban them?
All right, so, I'm
Ano-
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your
No,
presentation.
that's
Anything
okay.
else on your presentation?
I just wanted to bring up, in regards to medicinal cannabis, one thing that also needs to be considered, although medicinal cannabis is not subject to our state tax, there's a provision that local tax may be imposed, and that would fall under Prop 218.
We'd have to have a vote.
Just like Measure P.
For medical
For
cannabis.
medical.
So we would have to put it on the ballot, and it would require a two-thirds?
For either. For a tax, it would essentially be a local transaction or excise tax on the selling of cannabis, whether it was recreational or medicinal. And you would put it on the ballot in the same way as you put your transactions and use tax on the ballot, and it would take a majority vote were it to be used for general fund purposes.
Majority, you said majority, 51?
Majority, the level of the vote is determined by whether or not the tax is earmarked for certain purposes, in which case it's a 2/3 vote, or whether it's for general fund purposes, in which case it's a 50% vote.
All right, well, let me start with, I believe we have two members of the,
I have a couple
Oh,
of slides,
sorry.
if I may. And the other option, obviously, is to allow recreational, the sale of recreational cannabis within the city. Again, this is subject to a state sales tax, and an excise tax may also be imposed by the city under Prop 218. The other discussion is areas, if permitted, where should these retail sale activity be conducted? Commercial areas, industrial areas. Research that we've done where cities are allowing cannabis retail sales, typically they allow them the commercial or industrial areas. Industrial areas, if they allow more for like the cultivation, the more larger type of business, commercial areas would be just like a storefront retail sales. So the schedule, the proposed schedule is after receiving direction from council tonight, we will go back and start drafting the final ordinance, and hopefully July, the second meeting in July, we'll have a draft ordinance. And obviously, we want to hold public meetings for the public, and then take it to Planning Commission in September, and hopefully get approval in October, maybe early November. And that concludes my presentation.
You know, before I bring this to council, I know there is a public comment. I wanted to take that information from the public first, and then we'll bring it back to council as far as moving forward. Can we ask that?
Yes,
individual
Gary
comment?
Metelsky?
Gary Metelsky, Imperial, California. Good evening, council members. Hopefully you have gotten a two-page draft from a colleague of mine, Philip Grouse, to Lori Ajax. That might be interesting. But let me just put my comments in. I only have 3 minutes. Your number one job as city council is to protect the public health and safety of El Centro residents. Let me say that again. Protect the public health and safety. Number one job. On the health aspect of this, delaying or banning medical marijuana dispensaries may negatively affect people's health and quality of life. This issue has been pretty much settled. Medical marijuana helps a whole bunch of people. Facts, not alternative facts. Now for safety. In this medical marijuana experiment, how do we address safety? I look at what Connecticut and Arkansas are doing with their medical marijuana programs. They will be operated by pharmacists. That will protect the public safety. A pharmacist, by his education and experience, is the ideal solution to the safety problem of this. Pharmacists can counsel patients' serious medical conditions and other needs. Would you want to go to a bud tender and ask somebody without a medical license what's best to treat your cancer or your epilepsy? I think not. Why reinvent the wheel? Pharmacists have been doing this job professionally for a long time. Also, pharmacists could run cures reports whenever they think something is not right. And I don't know if you're familiar with the cures report. It's something used by DEA and law enforcement to find out if people are doctor shopping, overusing opioids or other medicines. A pharmacist is one of three people in the state who could run a cures report. By putting a pharmacist in charge of a dispensary, basically you're protecting public safety from abuse. The pharmacist can do things under his scope of experience and practice that nobody else can. Other states have recognized it, Arkansas, Connecticut, and I would assume as more states come on board with this, Texas, you're gonna see pharmacists involved in this. The state of California has given you the authority to do three things. You can ban this stuff, you could do nothing, and then the state regulations will be the regulations that are here. Or you could make your own regulations, and they give you the leeway to be more strict than the state regulations. You can make a statement. You're standing up for the health of El Centro. You're standing up for the whole county. We have no dispensary in this county. Nothing for the vets, the cancer patients, nothing. There are delivery services where you can get medicine, but you're not getting medical advice. Lastly, I just urge the City Council to consider this model if or when you decide to go forward with this issue. It's totally understandable if the issue is not going forward. But if you do go forward this, please consider the public safety and access with safety. Access with safety. You could be one of the few locales in this whole state to take this whole convoluted, screwed up situation and basically straighten it out. You have the ability to do that. I hope you consider it. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. We'll go ahead and bring this back to council, and I do appreciate staff, and actually I appreciate just our overall approach to this and just taking it very cautiously and all the investment, the moratoriums, everything that's been invested into this. And so And I do appreciate the folks that are assigned to the ad hoc committee and the work, and Norma, as always, we do appreciate everything that you've done. So at this point, I think I believe our two folks assigned to the ad hoc committee are in support, or what I'm hearing is that they are in support of medical cannabis, the dispensing of medical cannabis. Is that a fair statement?
Commercial medical cannabis.
Commercial medical cannabis, is that accurate?
I'd like to ask the city attorney to look into the implications of the rider bill and how Sacramento is going, because my understanding from reading it and having discussions with people that I've met at the seminars that we've gone to is that even if we do allow commercial medical sales, that come January 1st, there's going to be no restriction on them in terms of selling to the general public with a California ID. That's my understanding.
It's generally true. SB 94 is a combination of the Adult Use of Marijuana Act and the Medical Marijuana Act, and it has a number of provisions that are overtly a compromise. For example, you can be an operator of a medical marijuana facility and a adult use facility, recreational marijuana facility, in the same building, as long as the premises of the two are divided. If you do not have a medical marijuana card and you go into the medical marijuana dispensary, you can buy the product, but you'll be charged the state taxes. If you have a medical marijuana card, or a caregiver card, you will not be charged the state taxes.
That's what I understood.
So essentially, and again, Norma and I have not studied it, and we do need to go to some presentations, but the takeaway from the bill is that it incentivizes the allowing adult use dispensaries at the local level. It makes the oversight statewide. It disincentivizes some of the licensing requirements by requiring a local agency to enforce them themselves with no ability to collect money for that. It doesn't change the structure of the distribution of the excise tax on any cannabis product sale or cultivation that we discussed a lot when you did your ban before the legislation passed. So the bottom line takeaway is that you're correct. There isn't much difference. It preserves the semblance of it for people who wish to have the card.
And my recommendation after discussing this with staff and of course with Mr. Silva was that we use this as an opportunity to keep local control. I think ultimately that was a big concern, that we would just be given a set of rules, as we saw with this rider bill that just came out, that we now have to abide by. So in order to keep some semblance of local control regarding zoning, I would adopt and recommend this.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I know the action before us is to give direction, and I do appreciate the direction. Is there any comments or any other comments in relation to Councilmember Edgar Garcia's statement or recommendation?
I concur. And I want to thank Norma for all the work that she did, and everyone involved. I think that, we, as Mr. Garcia said, our ability to kind of control our own destiny, and are we able to have some mechanisms as far as where dispensaries may be located, it's important. And that's basically it. That's basically the core of the recommendation.
Any other comments in regards to, so let me just, before I go to Councilmember Jackson, so I'm hearing that we would give staff direction to begin addressing I'm sorry? Oh, sorry.
I just have a question.
Go ahead.
Which is a new question. Do you want to consider any kind of local tax? If you do, and you want to try to make this November election, I'm not suggesting you should, we need to know now.
This is our one and only opportunity.
it is certainly, this election is not your only opportunity. If you wanted this on in November, yes, it needs to get started now. That doesn't mean you have to do it. The whole issue is evolving. As I understand it, Norma knows more about this. The county has a proposed tax specifically authorized, by the way, for counties under SB 94 that will go in. When did Jim Minnick tell you? June?
June of 2018.
They were trying for this ballot but didn't make it. So I'm not saying you have to. We just don't want the opportunity to pass without you thinking about it.
But since the council went to even-year elections in 2018, as well as the El Centro School District, other than that, is there going to be another November election?
There'll be a November election because there'll be a couple of statewide bond issues.
Won't be very
that are
big,
being-
though.
Yeah. But locally, there's no other local election that I'm
I
aware
think
of.
City of Raleigh kept their election.
Talking about in El Centro.
Oh, in El Centro?
Not that I know
think
of,
so.
no.
Might as well keep it for June.
Or November.
Councilmember Jackson?
Yeah, I guess I need some clarification. Maybe Betsy can help me with this. Is if we move forward and we say we want to outright ban, as opposed to us saying we want to allow commercial medical, I'm trying to see where the local control is and where we lose or where we gain local control, and what does that actually mean moving forward? And understand that the state has this moving target because they keep changing the rules on a pretty much a monthly or quarterly basis. I don't know if you can answer this exactly where I'm going, but I just don't know. Are we gaining anything by saying that we want to move towards a medical marijuana commercialized operation as opposed to just saying, because I know at one time we said if we went as an outright ban, then we lose all local control. The state can then mandate all policies, regulations, and protocols with any kind of dispensary. But is that still the case, or vice versa? If we say we're going to do commercial medical marijuana, do we really retain local control?
The answer is you do. Under the legislation, which neither of us is an expert on yet, yes, I think you gain something. And what you gain by regulating either is position in the process that has been written into this law, which is an enhanced process for a local jurisdiction to work with whichever licensing authority you're working with. And they have made the process, at least on paper, it appears to be potentially more workable. There is a coordination process where you send your ordinance to the licensing authority, it's not clear which one, and they contact you. There's a process for checking in and sending notices if there's not compliance with your ordinance. Whether or not that will work, I don't know, but they've expanded the sections to try to have the two local and state jurisdictions work together. So when Councilmember Garcia says that you are getting into the arena of actually being regulated, that's true. And this bill is better in that regard than Prop 64.
My concern is that we live in a state that continues to chip away all local control from local jurisdictions. And although we may have a semblance of some kind of local control today, chances are, and probably the reality is we won't tomorrow. And that's kind of where I'm looking at.
Very well be true.
Okay. Any other comments?
So we've been studying the whole medicinal marijuana dispensary for, what, 5 years?
Yeah.
6 years?
Yeah.
Field trips, model ordinances, and all the rest. And I thought at one time that we'd come up with an ordinance that truly protected the interests of the city in terms of the number of dispensaries, the areas where they could be cited, security concerns, regulations with regard to how they could be operated, including a pharmacist as part of the makeup of the staff. to me, I mean, it's like, if we have to do this, or if we are going to do this, then we do have in place a model ordinance that's gonna, I think, really kind of balance the needs of what we want to see happen with regard to, you know, safety and other items. It's really a slippery slope, I think, when we decide what we're gonna do.
I just worry that we're going to get to a point where it's not going to matter anyways, because the
Well,
state will mandate
yeah.
to us and dictate to us what we do regardless.
But I think sometimes that happens, Jason, in the absence of us exercising leadership, that the default position is the state crams it down your throat. I agree with that. So Ms. Villacana, if you could help me understand the model ordinance that we had worked on, or you had worked on for a really long time, how does that play into the most recent work of the task force?
Well, what I've done, we pulled the ordinance that we had in the past, and basically what we need to do is go, and I think it is a good ordinance, but obviously it has to be tweaked, and to make sure that we meet the new provisions of the law. It's something very doable. I mean, it would be easier than to start just fresh. So I agree, we could we could use that as our foundation and just add on or remove or whatever we need to do to it. The only, if you recall that ordinance, we basically designated 2 areas within the city. And if I could get direction from the council as to whether you want to continue with those 2 areas, or you want us to explore other areas where, one of the issues that we had back then is that because those 2 areas were so specific, proponents were having a hard time either getting property or leasing property because some of the property owners were not in favor of that. I don't know if that has changed now, but that's something that could come up too.
All right, so, and then in regards to, let me just touch on in regards to the ballot initiative, how do you guys, any thoughts in regards to pursuing a ballot initiative, or how would you guys like to address that?
I don't think we have the time to do a really good job of explaining to the public what we'd want to do and why. Because I think that we're still really kind of undecided on what this is going to look like when it grows up.
And just for clarity, we won't lose there's not a window that's closing
No.
in terms of.
No,
Okay.
this is the first window essentially that's open. There'll be windows at each large election, at each regular election date after this.
Okay, and then.
Can that be placed on the June election?
No, it has to be, either have to make a specific finding, but it generally has to be on a council election, which would mean 2018 would be your next opportunity, absent emergency findings like the one you made for Measure P.
Well, it has to be tied to council election.
Yes, it is.
Do you have a comment, Councilmember Edgar Garcia?
Well, I think it's something we definitely should explore, but the timing is everything. I don't think we should try to rush it until we have more information.
All right. And just for clarity, even though if we were to choose to ban it, mobile dispensaries would still be allowed.
That's what I understand with the
Okay.
new changes to the bill.
All right. So I know we're kind of been all over the place. So do you have some direction, or do you want to kind of maybe recap what you believe the direction is?
I believe the direction is to move forward with the medical cannabis retail sales, no cultivation, because if you recall, there's that micro business type of license that a retail sales provider can also cultivate within a 10,000 square foot area. And so I just want to make sure that.
And what was the task force recommendation with regard to the micro business?
That micro business came after the task force, so we
Oh.
didn't really discuss the micro business.
I haven't really had much insight into that. I was surprised to see that on the agenda and discussing that. But, I mean, as far as I know, the sites that we would be looking at would fall within a micro business, but I'm not sure. I need to look into it a little bit more before I can give any direction on that. I think council probably feel the same.
It just seems to me that if I recall, the draft ordinance that we looked at before was pretty specific also with regard to testing, right?
Right.
And one of the issues that I would have with folks having to, like, the edibles that the mayor brought up, if those were gonna be, like,
I
put
believe-
together somewhere else
yeah.
and then brought on site?
I
and then-
believe the way the law states is basically you can do manufacturing, distribution, and so forth, except testing. The testing agency is an outside source. So,
No, the new one changed it.
Oh, the new one
It
changed
changed
it?
it back
Okay.
to being, doing the testing. So the testing provisions you will see are going to look like what is in SB 94, not necessarily the ordinance you drafted before. The testing for the edibles is done under some provisions of hold on, I looked it up.
I guess my question, Ms. Viacani, is would there be more quality control if the cultivation was done on site versus having other folks cultivate somewhere else and bring the edibles on site?
I believe there would be, however, it would still need to be tested by.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yes, definitely, I think it would be.
But maybe to the point of the committee, was there a recommendation that we do look at cultivating, or was your recommendation to ban cultivation?
I believe it was the general
mixed
consensus
on
to
that.
ban, not to.
To ban
because-
cultivation?
Yeah, because other cities, another city, and then also the county is considering the cultivation aspect. So,
All right, so maybe we can move forward with, so why don't you summarize again what you believe?
Okay, and can I ask a question that this is just, again, that all of this has kind of gone into the hopper and it's still a lot to be sorted out. But, so we have no authority to ban recreational cultivation of up to 6 plants, right?
Correct.
We have to allow that under the law. And this council has in fact acknowledged that we can we can regulate outside cultivation. We've decided to ban it, I thought.
yes.
Right? Indoor cultivation. So if somebody is cultivating plants inside, can they turn those into edibles and then send them to the dispensary?
I'm not sure.
I think they can. In theory,
Assuming
yes.
that the edibles meet
Wait,
the.
is that a no?
Not under state law, because basically several different layers, cultivators, manufacturers, going to be allowed from license to license. Growing 6 plants in your house,
Okay.
that will not be
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. So Ms. Viacani, back to your point, if other jurisdictions within Imperial County are looking to allow for cultivation, then if it's a license to license transfer, whoever's cultivating then could perhaps
Right.
come up with product that would be sold at
Correct.
the dispensary.
So
Any other, go ahead, Councilmember Jackson?
I just, I'm not really sure, we're kind of, I'm not sure if Norma knows exactly where we're going with this, but I think from my point of view on this, and I respect the work that Mr. Silva and Mr. Garcia did, and Norma and staff. Something that resonated with me was this gentleman's comment that one of our obligations is the health and safety of our community and our residents. And in the beginning of our meeting, we spoke about the fact that we have a potential crisis within our law enforcement agency. We have a shortage of law enforcement. We have possibly a real shortage coming up if we do have the exodus of 5 or 6 more officers. I can't support, personally, any move that would open up any kind of marijuana besides what we've already had to be mandated by state law, which was the 6 personal use plants for recreational use. I can't support, nor will I support moving forward with anything that beyond what has been mandated by state law. And the reason I'm doing that is because I just don't feel that we need it in the city of El Centro. The county is looking at cultivation. You've got Calexico looking at everything. You know, and I totally respect the fact that there's individuals that need it for medical purposes, but let's be honest, there are plenty of areas within this county, whether it be mobile or delivery services or whatever, for those individuals to get medicinal use marijuana. And I don't feel that we need dispensaries or cultivation or manufacturing processes in the city of El Centro to create the potential for crime. We've seen what we have with another facility within the city of El Centro. And for my part, I just see that any kind of move towards legalizing or allowing or taxing or trying to make it a business for profit in the city of El Centro, I think just adds to the potential for more crime and more issues for our law enforcement agencies to deal with, not only El Centro, but DEA, NTF, and all of the different agencies that are working to keep our streets safe. So I can't support it, and nor will I moving forward.
All right, thank you, Councilmember Jackson. We still need to give direction to staff. Any other comments in relations to that?
Yeah, I feel a lot very similar to Mr. Jackson. I think that the unfortunate thing is that there has not been enough research yet that has been done with regard to the medicinal marijuana benefits. And I was at UC Davis probably 6-7 months ago, and I said, why can't the UC campuses come on board and start doing the types of research that are really going to answer some questions once and for all? We had how many years of hearings with regard to medicinal marijuana, and we'd get testimonial after testimonial about the wonderful benefits. But I mean, there's an equal amount of studies that have been done that just say it's a gateway drug, screws you up, and I agree with Mr. Jackson. I think it's just not the direction that we need to be going at this point in time. So I also think that there's still a lot of gray area, a lot of uncertainty with regard to what the state of California is or is not going to end up doing. It's my understanding that they have until December 31st to finalize all of the rules and regulations with regard to this. So, I mean, just because we don't take action now with regard to a dispensary doesn't mean that we can't come back at some point in the future and decide that we're going to allow them. So I just don't think that the time is right.
Well, I think when we've been talking about this for quite some time, and the sense I got from all of us when Prop 64 passed was that we all voted against it, but that's a reality of a state law that is being imposed on all of our communities, and I think that rules will come down from the state that will force us to perhaps allow dispensaries in El Centro. So what better way to impose some of our own restrictions in as far as in the zoning where they may be allowed, and the additional restrictions that are part of our model ordinance, and kind of get ahead of the game and place those conditions and restrictions in a way that we can control them, as opposed to just accepting whatever the state gives us and forces us to do.
Well, let me ask the city attorney and Ms. Viacania this. Council does not meet first meeting in July, so it'd give you about a month to go through the recent Senate bill.
Yes.
To get a better understanding with regard to what the ordinance that we had originally drafted looked like, whether or not there'd be some opportunities to revise potential oversight. Can we just bring this back at next meeting in July, second meeting in July, and see if we've got 3 votes to move it forward?
I think the other question too is there anybody in this room that has any confidence in our state legislature? Because I certainly,
well, that's a pretty broad question.
I certainly don't, and that's a big reason why I don't want to move forward, because I mean, look at how many times they've moved the ball here. I mean, it's like, oh, we're going to do this, and then, you know, we do all this research, we expend all this staff time to try to figure out what this really means, and by the time we figure that out, they've come up with another bill that, you know, supersedes that bill and changes every part of this and that, and it's just,
Well, we've got boots on the ground, so, Ms. Biedra, can we get in touch with our lobbyist and see if we can get some intel on where we think any of this is gonna land up in Sacramento?
Yes, we can certainly do
Okay.
that. This is adopted. This is part of the trailer bill.
Right, but there's gonna be additional
future.
fine tuning, and
Yeah.
that's, and where we really get, pardon the pun, deep in the weeds is at the end of December, when all of the state regulations are supposed to be finalized and released.
And they're already
So-
talking about extending
Right,
them, I believe.
absolutely. So I think there's still a
So
lot to be
suggestion is
decided.
to bring it back in.
Second meeting in
I'm okay with that.
July.
Yeah. All right, well, I do appreciate everyone's comments, and so we look forward to hearing staff's update in July. Thanks again for the hard work. I'm going to go ahead and allow Ms. Salcido to get ready. We're going to take maybe a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and hash out the rest of the agenda. Excuse me. Mute.
Yes, the budget.
18. Item number 18, Ms. Salcido.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. Welcome to hopefully our final presentation for the City of El Centro budget for fiscal year 2017-2018. And I say hopefully final presentation. We previously had workshops with regards to the general fund as well as to the enterprise funds. The total city budget, all funds, is $99.1 million. The budget is allocated as follows. We have $99.1 million, of which 51% is for operations, that's supplies and services, personnel. 38%, yes.
I really apologize, Ms. Salcido, but I should have read the statement before you started on the budget. So will you please allow me to read this statement real quick?
Absolutely, yes. I can start again.
And this is in regards to the budget item, and I do have to read a statement. The statement reads, before we move on to taking action on the budget item, I'd like to publicly announce that last fall, Governor Brown signed legislation requiring the City Council to orally report a summary of any city or any council action on salaries, salary schedules, or fringe benefits for any executive manager, which includes department heads. Accordingly, before the City Council this evening, as part of the budget item, is a recommendation to approve salary and benefits packages for the non-represented full-time management employees. The non-represented management consists of department heads and the city manager position. The benefit package before you, the benefit package before the City Council includes a 2% base salary increase. There are no increases in benefits. I apologize, I should have read that before.
Could I start again?
No, you're okay.
So this budget for the city, this is all funds, again, $99.1 million, and it's allocated 51% for operations, supplies and services, 38% of the $99 million is for capital, 9% is debt service, and 2% is solid waste. With regards to the general fund budget for fiscal year 18, we started with a shortfall of, well, it was actually $2 million, brought it down to $1.4 million. Got harder to balance, and this shortfall mainly due to pension and labor cost. This final budget before you reduces that shortfall to $430,452, basically to address one-time expenditures. The shortfall was reduced by the following means, by the following actions. Reduction to overtime of $300,000, reduction to supplies and services at $300,000, $300,000 from freezing of 3 safety positions, vacant safety positions, $100,000 reduction to for example, community sponsorships, donations, special events, and other. And again, this shortfall from $1.4 million to $430,000 at the end of the year, and again, that from fund balance. With regards to the general fund is $31.4 million, of which 71% or $22 million of that is salaries and benefits. Without the one-time expenditure for Crookshank of $4 million, the salaries and benefits in this budget total 81% of the budget. For supplies and services, we're at 13%, $4 million out of the 31 for supplies and services, all departments. And then 16% or $5.2 million is for capital. Again, with regards to the general fund, the allocations are as follows. This pie chart reflects the various allocations of various departments. And the red one is public safety at 56%. That's the highest allocation. That's approximately $18 million of the $31 million for public safety. The number 2 allocation is Public Works at 19%. That's the green section of the pie chart. Public Works includes streets, engineering, Public Works administration, but it also includes the Crookshank project, which is a $4 million allocation, which increases this the green section, the Public Works section of this graph. The number 3 allocation, the third allocation is Parks and Recreation, 10% of the total general fund, or $3.3 million is for that. And then the next one being general government, which is council, city attorney, city manager, finance, HR, IT, etc., clerk, and so on. At $3.2 million is the fourth highest allocation of the $31 million in the general fund. And then the other departments being community development, economic development, minor allocations for that. With regards to the general fund, fund balance at the end of next year, we're projecting an ending fund balance of $12 million. 12,079,961, and that $12 million has been designated for various potential liabilities per the city's financial reserve policy. For example, we have allocated 10% for economic unknowns. That's $3.1 million. We have allocated for accrued leave liability $2 million. Which is in line with what the liability is. Then for vehicle and major equipment replacement, we have allocated $5.5 million, a small amount of what we actually should be allocating or designating for. The accumulated depreciation of our capital in the general fund is $17 million, and that's the goal for this line item. We were able to allocate $1 million out of our fund balance for contingency for Crookshank, and that leaves $437,000 for revenue stabilization. If revenues don't come in as projected, we have $400,000 to assist us with our commitments in the general fund. So overall, $12 million as of 6/30/2018 is a projected fund balance. Then we have the enterprise funds, and the major funds within the enterprise are water and wastewater. And then for water, we are projecting a total ending working capital of $10.4 million. And again, we have designated for the various potential liabilities for the city's reserve policy, and we have the 10%, $551,000, the designation for accrued leave liability of $234,000, the designation for vehicle and major equipment replacement of $4 million, and both of those, the $234,000 and the $4 million, are in line with what the current liability is. We have a total designation of $4.7 million out of the 10, leaving $5.6 million unallocated out of the water fund. For the wastewater fund, we are projecting an ending fund balance of $9 million, of which $2.3 million, $2,317,000, has been designated for those potential liabilities, that 10% reserve for economic unknowns, for the accrued leave liability, and the vehicle and major equipment replacement. We have an undesignated balance of $6.6 million within the wastewater fund. Now, with regards to our capital in this budget, we have an allocation of funds of $37.4 million. All capital requests from all the departments in the city were evaluated to determine whether the request was to meet a safety need, a legal requirement, or to improve customer service. And in this case, especially in the general fund, the capital included in the general fund is to address a safety concern. By function, Public Works, we have allocated $27.6 million, of which, for example, wastewater improvements, we have allocated $16 million. So the majority of the $27 million is for water and wastewater improvements, the majority of that being from bond proceeds. We have allocated in this budget $6.3 million for street improvements, of which the major projects are La Boucherie widening at $2.6 million and the Imperial Avenue extension at $3.2 million. We have in this category the allocation for Crookshank, the cleanup of the landfill at $4 million. And then we have also allocations for bike path improvements, for signal light improvements, sidewalk improvements, and then Colonia drainage and miscellaneous bus shelter improvements, totaling $27.6 million in this category of Public Works. In the category of Parks and Recreation, we have an allocation of $7.1 million, of which the major project here being the Aquatic Center at $6.2 million. We also have allocations for Plank Park and McGee Park for the construction of Plank and then for the renovation of McGee. And we have $15,000 for the playground renovation at Legacy Park. For public safety, we have allocated $2.6 million, and the major capital purchase here being the $1 million for the license plate reader system. And then we have the next big chunk of here of this allocation for computer and radio upgrade, and then handheld radio upgrade and portable and mobile radio upgrades for police and fire. We also have a major allocation here to refurbish one of the fire engines at $214,000. So overall, for public safety, $2.6 million allocated in this budget, and mostly to address safety concerns. With regards to various departments, all the other departments, the allocation is $70,000, $60,000 basically to replace agency firewalls and servers citywide, and then $10,000 for shop equipment, the motor vehicle department. Now, with every budget, we try to meet our strategic planning goals. And as you know, we have this program, and it has 5 major goals, and those are to improve transportation and mobility. Goal number 2 is our desire is safe neighborhoods. Number 3, recreation and lifelong learning. Number 4, to business development and city beautification. And then number 5, resource sustainability. And I'm happy to say that we have been able to meet every one of those goals, even with our limited resources. For example, for transportation and mobility, which is goal number 1, we're investing $8.7 million, mainly from street improvements, $6.3 million. We have also allocations for street maintenance and lighting for operations, $1.2 million. And then as mentioned before, we have bike path improvements, signal light improvements, sidewalk improvements, and then bus shelter improvements. We have been able to meet goal number 2 for safe neighborhoods by investing $19.5 million towards that goal. For operations for police and fire, we have an allocation of $16.9 million. And then we have for capital $2.6 million. And as mentioned before, we have safety equipment, the in-car and body-worn camera system, the license plate reader, computer and radio upgrades, refurbishing of the fire engine, and then the feasibility study for the new police station. For recreation and lifelong learning, goal number 3, we are investing $10.4 million. Just in operations, for parks, recreation, and library, we are allocating $3.3 million. And then for capital, as mentioned before, we're allocating yes?
Which one is Legacy Park?
It's Legacy subdivision on 4th, past In and Out on the left-hand
Where they
side.
have the fallen law enforcement officers.
Pulte Homes, yes.
Pulte Homes.
Pulte Homes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Recreation and lifelong learning, again, capital $7.1 million, and the major project here being the aquatic center. For business development, goal number 4, business development and city beautification, we are investing $548,000 for economic development, blight elimination, and the landscape and lighting districts. For resource sustainability, we're investing the $20 million, out of which the biggest portion is the $16 million in water and wastewater improvements, and then $4 million for the Crookshank landfill cleanup. In summary, this budget meets the city's strategic goals. However, it is not without challenges. As mentioned in previous presentations, we have had various challenges, and one of the imminent in this next year's budget is the reduced allocations to the general fund. The long-term challenges are the CalPERS, the increase in pension costs. That's the main one. Then, as a result of the bigger chunk of our funds being allocated to pension, some of the other items like our equipment and our fleet are aging and will need replacement soon. So that's an area that we need to address in the future. Increase in operational cost as we build new facilities, as we move forward. For example, when we build with the new Measure P funds, those new projects, there will be an increase in operational costs, and that's a challenge that will have to be addressed in the future as well. Workers' compensation, we've discussed that before, the significant increase in that, and then the increase in labor commitments. But overall, we will continue to work together to make it work. As an example, with regards for overtime, I know that's a big concern. We're cutting $300,000 from overtime. We plan to continue on a continuous basis to monitor this expenditure, quarterly, mid-year reviews presented to council, and that will be done by both finance and the department heads of those departments, police and fire. Our plan is when doing those reviews, if additional revenues come in, or if there is a need in the community for additional allocations to overtime, we will come back to council and we will consider budget adjustments to these allocations. Of course, if revenues come in, then we have the means to do that. If revenues don't come in, but there is a need within the community to do so, then maybe an allocation if we have savings in other areas or from fund balance. But this, again, we're going to try to make it work by continuously monitoring the needs of the various divisions in order to address the needs of the community.
Very, very well stated. Before I kind of jump into comments, I'm going to bring this back to council just for any comments or suggestions, recommendations, any comments. Are you okay, Councilor Jackson?
I'll start, I guess. And maybe this is a question for Terry. $462,000 in bike paths expenditure. What exactly is that, and what are we gaining by spending?
I can help out with that. It's regarding the grants for ATP. So it has to do with studies on the related to safe routes to school plans, getting wayfinding signs, and sharrows in the streets, improving the infrastructure. It's a piggyback basically to what we did on 8th Street. We did receive grant funding, and we're leveraging it with LTA where we can to to do various projects. The first one was that's visible was A Street improvements. There's other ones for plans on how to improve biking and putting sharrows and wayfinding signs throughout the city.
And how much of that is coming out of general fund? Is that all general fund, or is that matching?
Not general fund,
So that's all grant money and LTA?
100% grant funding.
Okay.
Jason, there's a boatload of money. Active transportation has just become the buzz or one of the buzzes, now that we've had the marijuana discussion, in Sacramento. Tied to obesity and getting kids out and walking and all of that. So
Okay.
I think that we're actually going to see more opportunities for grant funding in the active transportation realm.
All right, thank you.
I should mention that out of the general fund, $5.1 million, $4 million is for Crookshank, and then $1.2 million is all safety equipment. We try to address the safety concerns first. Only $20,000 is for infrastructure, IT infrastructure.
And that kind of, if I could.
Go ahead.
Okay, so in looking through all of the authorized personnel that we have, and that's found on pages 87 and forward. But I had to go back and reacquaint myself with where the IT personnel report, and they report up under HR?
Yes.
Okay, so that's one of those departments that we don't hear from. And I would really, really like for the IT department to do a presentation to the city council at an upcoming meeting. I'm part of a new initiative that started at Southern California Association of Governments called Open Data. And we have just all kinds of academics there. We've got the folks from Riverside, Los Angeles County, and it's just amazing what other jurisdictions are able to do with the information that they have and how they can bring it all together and make them work more efficiently, smarter. And so I really think that we need to hear from our IT folks and see, are there opportunities for us to do more with less? Okay?
Excellent. Councilmember Garcia, any general comments or questions?
Just a great job. I know we've definitely had multiple discussions regarding coming up with a budget. It definitely takes a lot of work, and commend your office and staff. Just great job all around.
Thank you.
Councilmember Silva?
I just want to say, thank you, Letty. I think, again, you've done a great job in terms of, giving us the balanced budget, which we have to do, but I know how difficult that is, and we've had a number of, meetings where, I asked some of the specific questions, but it is a balanced budget, but it's not without sacrifices, as you indicated. And, and the needs continue to arise.
Right.
We made a commitment to our police officers that we're going to perhaps reevaluate the compensation structure for, in order to keep our officers. That's going to require some resources. We made a commitment to our downtown merchants that we're going to take some definitive actions to improve downtown. That is going to require some resources. The amenities that are coming down the pipeline, like the aquatic park, are going to require additional resources. And it's not an easy job. So I really want to compliment you and Richard and all your staff for continuing to do this for us. And you make a very difficult job a little bit easier and giving us the options to do that. And I think the wisdom is in your ability to kind of plan ahead.
Thank you.
And look into the future and make sure that we don't get into trouble. So just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say that it's a coordinated effort, and I want to thank all the departments involved because they're making sacrifices. And I just want to tell them that I'm very grateful that we were able to work together and bring you this budget today.
One of the unknowns that we've also talked about, Ms. Salcido, that I'm not sure where it's referenced, is that there's an expectation that our JPIA is going to go up. Is that anticipated in this budget, or is that for another?
We already have the raise for this budget, and so it will be most likely in a subsequent one, 2019.
Okay. Okay. And how much did it go up this year?
This year, it stayed status quo for liability insurance.
And next year, we
And
think?
next year, with the amount of claims, there's thinking maybe an additional $1 million or more, yeah. So, but again, it's unknown at this point in time. It's just guesses based on the number of claims.
Well, again, I do think I'm really pleased to see the 700,000 in salary increases for our employees. I'm grateful that that's in there. The 37 million in capital improvements, 2.6 million in public safety improvements as well. So do appreciate everything that you've done in your department. You know, I know you said that this is a moving, or not necessarily a moving target, but we can continue to visit. And normally we do look at a mid-year budget review, and considering that the 300,000 in overtime is an aggressive cut, and the freezing of those positions, that maybe we can come back on a quarterly basis as opposed to a 6-month review, and maybe provide the council an update. And I'm hoping my colleagues would join me in support that Ms. Leticia would come back with a quarterly update as far as where we stand with our budget in relationships to overtime and the freezing of those positions, and if there's sweeping of the corners that allows for us to revisit that. We're hopeful that we can revisit it on a quarterly basis as opposed to mid-year. So,
And I'd like to add something to that. I think that both the state budget that we've seen so far is scary with regard to what's going to be pushed down, what the expectations are. And the federal budget just scares the bejeebs out of me when it comes to cuts to social services, because who's going to fill that gap, right? If our CDBG funding gets cut and the other cuts that are coming down, where's the backfill for those? So I think that we really, as the state budget gets finalized for the July 1 implementation, right, and federal budget, the October implementation date, we really need to understand what are the implications for City of El Centro.
Good suggestion. Would maybe the first week or second meeting in October be acceptable as far as coming back so we can address maybe the overtime and the vacancies? And
Yes, like I mentioned before, this is, especially because of the overtime issue, we'll be analyzing this on a continuous basis and obtaining the input from both of the departments affected, police and fire, to come back to you. Now, with regards to any updates with regards to the state and federal budget, of course, that will be included as well as any other developments as a result of the new administration with regards to sales from Mexicali shoppers and all that. I'm still expecting, I'm still waiting to see how it's all going to work out, and if we're going to be affected more so than what I have projected in our numbers.
Well, I also want to see what Public Works can come up with regard to the SB1 transportation funding and what happens, recognizing that that's not going to take effect, and kind of like different start dates for the vehicle license fee enhancements and the gas tax increase and things like that. But ultimately, that's going to be a fairly good chunk of change coming to us. And just what are the plans for that funding?
And of course, the uncertainty of a retail sales is something that I saw the mall manager recently, and I asked her how things were going, and she said that they're going okay, not great, but the single most thing that's impacted the mall is the uncertainty and the devaluations of the Mexican currency. Of the peso, and that's just keeping shoppers away from Mexicali.
And that is a concern. I've been looking at the numbers for the mall, and I had them somewhere here. At the peak.
That's the other thing that I don't quite understand. Have you guys been following this with regard to the Grand Plaza and them asking for dollars to enclose it?
Yeah.
Our guys did it on their own. So I'm not sure where the investment is coming from to help that particular mall.
Leticia, when do our allocations from sales tax come in?
We get from the BOE to the city. We get them on a monthly basis, and they're based on last year's actual number. So they do an estimate, and we get them on a monthly basis. If you're interested on the mall, as I was saying, the at the peak, we were at $1.8 million. And as of 2016, the revenues from the mall was 1.5. 1.8, 1.5, it's going down. And this is before the impact of the new administration changes and so on. So that's another thing that I'm monitoring.
So our budget for the city council, is that the one that's found on page 119? So we get to manage to this $133,000?
Yes.
That includes our salaries?
We cut back on, one of the items in your budget was the supplies and services. I think the cut was.
Does that include, is that also where we have our travel expenses for like
Yes,
League of California
supplies and
Cities?
services,
Okay,
uh-huh.
so we're actually taking a reduction of.
Yes, all the departments, I believe the overall was 5 or 6% cut. And then except for items like, for example, in non-departmental, where we pay our liability insurance, those are fixed costs, we cannot do anything. So some of the departments were not, and even within some of the departments, there's some items that we had no discretion, so I didn't cut on those. But everything else, yes, all departments, all divisions, including council.
Yep.
Yes.
So again, thank you to your department. Great work. I do want to give a special recognition to Ms. Marcela Piedra. I know that behind the scenes, she's working really hard, and she's wearing a lot of hats right now. And I do want to thank you in helping us get this budget adopted. So appreciate all your leadership, Ms. Piedra. I know that you work very hard.
Thank you, Mayor, but I really give credit, obviously, to our finance director. As you know, we've been working on this budget and presenting different options, so I really commend her efforts and the efforts of her staff, and of course, also our department heads. As she pointed out, this is a team effort, and we're all feeling the pain, and we know we're going to work forward on making sure that we monitor our budget very closely, and obviously what's happening at the state and federal level, which obviously, is an impact to our community. But again, just want to thank Ms. Salcido for her great work and the great work of her staff, and all of our department heads.
Thank you, Ms. Piedra, and thank you, council.
Yes.
And
So at this point, in regards to item number 19, it says adoption of resolution establishing the appropriation limits for the 2017 fiscal year. We have
Mayor?
Yes.
Your item number 18 is the adoption of the annual budget.
Yeah, I mixed that, sorry. So this is in regards to the adoption of the annual budget fiscal year 2018. And so we have adoption of resolution number 17-59, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro, California, adopting the annual budget for fiscal year 2017-18. We have a motion from Councilmember Silva, a second from Mayor Pro Tem Villegas-Walker. We'll go ahead and vote, and that action passes 5-0. Thank you. Moving down to item number 19, adoption resolution establishing the appropriation limits for 2017 fiscal year. We have a presentation from Ms. Salcido.
Before we start, a correction, the adopt resolution establishing the appropriation limit for the 2018 fiscal year. I noticed that today. And then, and then on the attachment, on the GAN appropriation limit, at the bottom it says total general fund appropriations, and it should be total appropriation. So we're making that correct. Actually, we already corrected it in the budget. But this was before we noticed the change. Now, with regards to the GAN limit, Article 13B of the California Constitution requires cities and counties to adopt an appropriation limit on an annual basis, basically a spending limit from any tax revenues. This appropriation limit at this point is $36.4 million, and the proceeds for taxes in the 2018 fiscal year is $32 million. So we're way below our limit by $4.2 million. And what we're asking here is that council approve the resolution establishing the appropriation limit for fiscal year 2018.
Okay, great. In regards to item 19, is there any questions from council? Being that there's none, I'd entertain a motion to adopt resolution establishing the appropriation limits for 2018 fiscal year. This is adoption of resolution number 17-55, resolution of the City Council of the City of El Centro establishing the appropriation limits for the 2018 fiscal year in accordance with Article number 8B of the Constitution of the State of California. I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker, second by Councilmember Garcia. We'll go ahead and vote, and that also passes 5-0. Excellent. Moving down to item number 20, and this is in regards to discussion and necessary action regarding the City of El Centro special events, and we do have a presentation from Ms. Piedra.
Yes, good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. Now that you have an adopted budget, it was important for us to bring to your attention the allocation that was provided for our special events. As you know, this is a program that through our Parks and Recreation Department, we offer to our community. And as Ms. Salcido pointed out, we are seeing a reduction in our special events fund of $10,000. With that reduction, it is very important for us to consider what special events our city would like to offer for the 2018 fiscal year. Attached to the report or the staff report that was provided to you, you see a breakdown of how much was spent during this fiscal year for the various special events we hold. Obviously, the main ones that for the past 10 years our city has been offering has been El Grito de Independencia in September, the Christmas tree lighting and street fair in December, and of course the city's signature event, the Mardi Gras Light Parade and Street Festival in February. We also get approached, as you know, we participate in many community events. Obviously, we get participation from our neighboring cities, different organizations, and so we try to strive hard to also participate in those community events. One of the biggest ones that impacts particularly our parks staff is the Children's Fair. As you know, that's held at Buckland Park, and we do have a substantial amount of staff from our park staff that participate in that, and of course, not to mention other city departments that participate in that event as well. For the past 2 years, we've also been organizing community activities such as for the first year, actually, we did the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Celebration at the Sports Pavilion. We also did the unveiling of the Veteran Memorial. We also participated or offered to do the Hispanic Heritage event. We also do Dia de los Muertos, and we, for the first time again, did Cesar Chavez Day at the old Post Office Pavilion. And then we also offer Kids Night Out, which has been a program that has been received very, very well by members of the community. And then we also do a Princess Tea Party at the old Post Office Pavilion. And again, we do get requests from other cities to participate in other community events as well, and we strive hard, if obviously our budget allows, to participate in those. As you can see from the spreadsheet that's attached to your staff report, for this fiscal year, we ended up expending about $75,519, and that includes basically staff time has been broken down there. And this is, I must clarify, the staff time that you see reflected in this spreadsheet is only Parks and Recreation. We do also have other city departments that participate in special events. For example, our police department does a very good job of assisting our special events. They actually physically are present when we have Mardi Gras and El Grito, and obviously when we do these other events too, we ask for their assistance in terms of making sure everything is safe as we deliver these activities. So again, this doesn't include impacts to public works or any other requests that we may get as a city to contribute towards special events. So as you can see, for just expenses associated with the actual delivery of the event, we're looking at $47,950. And what that is basically paying for the entertainment, any kind of equipment that we need to rent, or anything associated with the delivery of these special events. In terms of personnel, we expended $27,570. So as you can see, a significant amount of money is spent to deliver these various activities that we are currently offering. We do work very hard to get sponsorships, and we have seen the generosity of our local businesses and organizations in our community. And in terms of cash sponsorships that we were able to receive for this fiscal year was $16,000. We primarily receive in-kind sponsorships. For this year, for instance, we got $40,000, And that consists of basically advertising, which obviously is very important to us, but the in-kind is primarily in the form of advertising. So we were able to obtain 56,000, and as you can see, it barely covers the actual, operating costs of these special events. So we wanted to bring this forward to you so that we can receive your input. Again, all of these activities that we do are very valuable to our community, and we really want to give you an opportunity to give input to staff as to what you would see as appropriate for 2018. I do want to mention that we did, in preparation for bringing this discussion before you, we did have a similar presentation with our Library and Community Services Board at their meeting of June 8th. And as you can see from the recommendation there, instead of what they felt was that instead of reducing costs for a few community events, that we look at maybe one of the major events that cost the city more money. And the two that they looked at was the El Grito event that we do, and primarily the reason why they were are asking to consider perhaps not offering that in 2018 is primarily because of the weather, being that it's not the most ideal. The attendance doesn't seem as high as, of course, Mardi Gras, and they recognize that Mardi Gras is the city's signature event, but it is the most costly to the city. And also, in terms of promoting cultural activities, we're already doing that with the MOU that we have with the consulate office, and so they thought that maybe we can do some cultural activities there at the old post office pavilion. So that was the basis for their recommendation. In terms of, again, the Mardi Gras parade, it is the most costly to the city. We spent about approximately $30,000, but that's our signature event. But again, that was the recommendation of the board. So that
All right,
concludes my report.
so I guess, I know you're asking for direction, and before I bring it to council, if I may, are you basically looking at us just to cut out an event? Is that what you're asking council to consider here, or what? I know again, it's direction, but I just want to get some clarity before I bring it back to council.
Sure. Basically, what we are offering is, staff could have taken the position and say, okay, we're not going to do, an event, but we wanted to make sure that council, because again, I mean, all of these events are very valuable to our community, but we also wanted to make sure that you understood that, in order to do events like this, obviously the cost is pretty significant, and it does impact basically, your city departments. And as we are looking at reducing overtime basically across the board, it's imperative that we look at this program. And instead of, again, staff, just taking the position and saying, okay, we're eliminating this, we wanted to make sure you had an opportunity to, see these expenses as well.
All right. So again, but the takeaway is that we're going to give you some sort of direction on which event that we definitely need to cut out something. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, basically that's what we're looking for.
So let me go ahead and bring that back to council, and who wants to start here?
Yes, sir.
All right, Mr. Silva.
So, Marcela, on the personnel costs that we expended out of Parks and Rec, the 27,000 last year. So is it fair to say that that money, it's not on the budget that we just adopted? So in the event that let's just say hypothetically that we didn't change anything, that we did everything, are we gonna need to add $27,000 to the budget that we just approved, or how does that work?
Basically, what you see, that the 27,000 is within the funds, particularly in Parks and Recreation, because that's primarily who offers these, and we coordinate, and we work those special events. So we have obviously a certain budget and amount. A lot of the personnel costs is overtime, because as you know, I mean, we're there at 6 in the morning and we leave at 2 in the morning just because of the timing. And again, when you also participate in other activities, as much as we try, and believe it or not, I mean, there's a lot of activities that we say no to, unfortunately, and they're all good activities. So this money is built into our funds, but again, with the reduction in overtime, and other cuts that we are seeing, especially like in services, or also in our expenses, it does create an impact. So again, that's what we're trying to see if we can perhaps consider the elimination of one event or two, or, I mean, we have a $10,000 reduction, so we need a.
And remind me how much, I think on the budget that we just approved, as far as cash for expenses, we approved $40,000, correct?
Basically, it's a $40,000 budget for special events. But again, that's funded through sponsorships that, you know, us as staff try to obtain from, obviously, the community.
Because I know some of the sponsorships that we received last year, they were event specific.
That's correct.
Right, so I know that the Rondalla event that's noted here, as I recall, most, if not all of the actual cash expenses were covered through sponsorships. I know the county gave us $1,000 and State Farm gave us $250, $300.
Yes,
and it was specific for that event.
Exactly, and a lot of those contributions are specific, but again, it's just to cover the actual delivery of the,
Right.
of the event. If we have to pay for the venue, if we have to pay for any equipment, you know, it doesn't cover, those sponsorships do not cover the personnel costs.
Well, but on the Rondalla event, the venue, so the Rondalla event is really a partnership between Centro High School District
Yes.
that allows us to use the theater at no cost, right? Of the facility, we pay, our contribution is the sound. And
Yes, that's
and the actual Rondalla is paid for by the consulate. Also, as I recall, on the Dia de los Muertos, most of the actual cash expenses were also fundraised by people that contributed specifically for the event. It wasn't a general contribution. They said this is for this.
That's correct.
For this specific purpose. As well as the Grito, and I know we didn't raise $14,000, but I can recall, I can think of one major sponsorship that came last year for $5,000 and then one for $3,000, as I recall.
Basically, the county did contribute, but again, they split it. For example, we spent $1,000 in El Grito, I believe Christmas tree lighting and Mardi Gras. That, I believe that's the number you recall, the 3,000. But they asked to be, you know, specific to the three events that,
all
the
the
major
event-
events.
okay. Right. And so I think, I know this is really small. It's probably the smallest one we have here, one of the smaller ones, but I think we can probably do away with the Cesar Chavez Day next year. I'm not sure that that's something that I would want to continue.
Can I throw an idea out there, Mr. Silva?
Hmm?
And it's because you and I are the representatives to the hospital board. Hospital does a huge Mardi Gras event, and it comes right around the same time as our light parade. I wonder if there's an opportunity for the city and the hospital to work together on an event. I don't think we've ever done that before, where we come together and see if we can fashion a themed event where both the city and the hospital join forces and do something together.
I know that we used to do the coronation as part of the hospital.
No, there's a chamber, wasn't it?
No.
Well, they go out to the event, the dinner, but I mean, maybe we just talk about, is there, because it's like one night you're at the hospital dinner, another night you're doing the light parade, and then the third night you have, or earlier than that, you have the coronation. So maybe we could just think of coming together for one single Mardi Gras themed event as opposed to three different things, maybe.
So I'll make a kind of a sweeping statement. You know, we've asked every single department to take substantial cuts. We've frozen positions, we've frozen overtime, we've cut out capital expenditures to different departments. And, you know, you look at this, and although it's not a huge number, it's still a number that I think we need to address. I agree with the recommendation of the Library Community Services Commission or Board in the fact that we have a signature event, which is the Mardi Gras, and I think it's recognized countywide as El Centro has a signature event. The other thing that seems to really serve the community is the Christmas tree lighting. What is the overall cost of what we expend on the Christmas tree lighting?
Well, this year we spent about $5,000. So it compared to the others, it's
So
minimal.
if we were to try to save those two, let's say we do the Christmas tree lighting and the Mardi Gras, that's around 35, that stays within our budget. My recommendation would be, and I know that there's some of these events that are near and dear to certain members of this council. Many of the El Grito is a signature event for Mr. Silva. He was the one that brought it forth. Veterans obviously is something that I feel passionate about, but I think that if we want to move forward with these type of events, we need to fully fundraise 100% of the cost, whatever that cost is. If the cost is $5,000, we need to secure those funds beforehand, before we even announce that we're going to do the event. So, and that's on us as council members or staff or however we want to do it. But for us to continue, and we've done this every year, we've had this budget issue for the last 2 or 3 years, and every year we just go, we'll just go ahead and keep doing it. And we always are over budget. We budget 40, 50,000, we spend 75 or 80,000. We say we're going to raise money through sponsorships, and we set goals of 20,000, and we come in at 12,000. And who makes up the other 8,000? Our general fund. And so I have an issue with that, because I think that, like I said, we're asking the departments to make substantial cuts. These are those tough decisions that we're all supposed to be paid so highly for. But I think that we need to make that decision that if I want to do a veterans celebration at Veterans Day, then I need to go out and raise $5,000. If we want to do El Grito, then we need to go raise $15,000 or whatever the cost may be. If we want to do, whatever else there is. I mean, I think that the night out, the kids' night out, is a very, very successful program. I've heard huge praise from parents, and I don't know what the overall cost is for that, but I look at things that are going to benefit the masses. I know there's people from all over this county that come to El Centro on Mardi Gras. It is the signature event in the entire county. And I think the Christmas tree line, you see hundreds, if not a couple thousand kids out there. We've had great partnerships with different stores. I know Bill used to be very big with that. And that's another thing that's just, it resonates throughout our community. And not to say that El Grito and some of these other events, the veterans, obviously we just saw how passionate the veterans are. But if we're going to move forward on that, then we have to take some of that responsibility on our shoulders, and we have to go out and fundraise. And that's where I'm at with this.
And let me just piggyback, what I'm hearing though, we do have $40,000 budgeted, right? So the deficit that we're really saying is 10,000 is that what we're looking at potentially.
No, more like 30.
30?
I think at the end it's more, and I'll tell you why, because as you can see, I mean, with the amount that's allocated, we do go over. And again, I mean, I guess the way we're seeing it is it just doesn't impact, and that's why I wanted to make sure that, I clarified that the personnel cost you see here is only reflected of Parks and Rec. I mean, like I said, events like this impact Public Works. They impact, our police department, our fire department. Basically, all departments are impacted when we do events like this, because you see them out there, in the street with us as well. So, that was important for us. And again, this was a very important discussion for us, because yes, we're looking at 10,000 directly for the delivery of the special event, but it does impact our personnel costs.
So I'm kind of agreeing with Councilmember Jackson as far as us not exceeding that 40,000. And anything above that 40,000 needs to come back to the council for some sort of approval or discussion, in fairness to our budget. Is that kind of what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with a case-by-case, evaluation from the council and where we are with fundraising. We have a very generous community that will support some of these events, but I can't, in good conscience, I can't tell the chief that he's got to cut overtime, but yet saddle him with 5 special events where he's got to use overtime. how does that work? And see, I think that's where the problem is it's not so much the budgeted money, but it's like Marcel is saying, is there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes in it. Public Works has overtime, fire, police, even our city manager staff, everybody's got overtime, but we've just told everybody that they've got to cut $300,000 in overtime. But yet we're going to turn around and say, no, we're still going to do all these events, and you guys got to suck up overtime. It doesn't make any sense. We're contradicting ourselves. But if we can raise the money, I have no problems with that. I mean, if I want an event bad enough, I'll make some calls and I'll try to raise money. And if we can hit that number, then we do the event. If we don't hit the number, we don't do the event. It's really, we need to start running this more like a business. If we've got the money to do it, we'll do it. If we can't, we don't.
So the idea, Mr. Jackson, would be that we would continue to do the Mardi Gras activities, and then everything else would have to be self-sustaining or self-sufficient.
Yeah. Well, or in the Christmas tree, because that still puts us 5,000 under budget. What's the kids' night out cost us?
Basically, what you see there, it's primarily the staff time, and again, we try to work within our budget for this, and I have to tell you that when we first started this program, we were doing it on a monthly basis, and we got a lot of complaints because we actually reduced it. Now we're doing it only 4 times a year because, again, of budget reasons. So what you see here is basically, what 4 times that event costs us to do.
We're really good friends, so I can put her on the spot. And I would love to have Pat Urena come up and just kind of talk through the participation that we get in some of these other events. I mean, I've seen every single one of these highlighted, either Facebook, paper, personal friends. I have not attended the Princess Tea Party, but I understand it's a blast and a half, that it's always maxed out. So, Pat, I don't know if you have the list or if we could get the list. It's page 159 of the agenda. Can we pop page 159
Yes.
up or no?
Well, actually, I can just tell you that in terms of the, and I can start with the Princess Tea Party,
Okay.
we're at capacity. We do have complaints. When you have complaints from the residents that you just don't have any more room and they want another one, we said we are offering one this year. The, as Marcela
Sorry,
mentioned,
but what's capacity in terms of numbers?
101 at the OPOP.
But we did that, we had a little boys event too, didn't we? The pirate one, or was that for
That one's
boys and
coming up
girls?
this weekend, actually.
Oh, okay.
It's the heroes for all residents.
Okay.
And as Marcela said, we do participate with other cities when we go and attend their events as well. One of the things that we looked at as staff was the participation of city residents from El Centro, because
Yes.
that's what we really want to cater to. And you did mention the Mardi Gras, that is in high attendance from everybody in the valley. And, the only thing with that, we always have to play with weather. The one that I'm very familiar with is because we have the high schools, junior high, and all the elementary schools from El Centro, and that's the Christmas tree lighting. Weather, we also look at the weather. And as I mentioned, El Grito is a hot, weekend, and not to say it's not a bad program. We started this 10 years ago as a anniversary for the city of El Centro, and it kind of just kept going and going, and it grew and it grew. But we're at a point right now that we are being asked to cut back on overtime, and it's not just there anymore. So, one of the things that we're looking at is where can we provide our service for the residents of El Centro? And so we look at the costs that we have here. And yes, your tea parties are great. Your kids' night out, we went from 1 each month to 4. And we do get the complaints that we're not out there every month. The Children's Fair is also another hot month, but that's really park staff that gets, and as well as recreation staff. The personnel there is very high, because we're there all day long. And again, some of these were there from 6 in the morning till 2 o'clock at night. But all these little small events that we look at here, always look at El Centro residents first. And that's what we're looking at.
Thank you, Pat.
Pat, I have a question.
Yes,
What do
sir.
What do we do at the Children's Fair, and what exactly is the benefit or maybe return on investment for what we put into that?
Well, mostly it's just awareness for parents to bring their kids out to the park on a one-day visit, so that moms and dads can, share time with their kids. As far as our department, Parks Department is really out there to set up all the wiring for all the audio. And then with the stage that we put out there, you have to have park staff to set up the stage. We just can't loan it out. And then as far as our staff, we're probably one of the only programs that's out there giving out free stuff and free food to the kids. Because some of the cost for tacos and everything is pretty high out there. So we do offer quite a bit of activity out at the park as well.
And do we think the CAP Council is going to continue with the Children's Fair? I mean, I didn't think it was that well attended this past year. Maybe it was because of the weather or something else, but
I think when you run programs year after year after year, you have some good years, you have some bad years. It's always the same person running it over and over again. After Peggy Calvin, now you have Ms. Garcia that's overseeing it. But there's been, we're running into a situation, people don't want to come out and work on the weekends anymore. It's very difficult, especially if the weather's bad. That's something else that we look at.
Pat, I would make a recommendation that anything, whether the tree lighting or the kids' night out, that you make a request to the Community Foundation, the Central Friends of the Community Foundation, and make a request to help fund that or supplement some funds there. I think we have a meeting tomorrow, and so I think we're really going to start picking up again. So I would encourage that on one of these events, $2,500 to $3,000 range, that you would make a recommendation to the Community Foundation to consider sponsoring it. I think that would be favorable. In regards to the Grito, I don't know if we can partner with Calexico. I don't know if they do a similar event, or if there's some collaboratives that we can look at, or to help deal with that deficit. But I guess what I'm hearing is that we are going to have to make these cuts, and so I do want to give specific direction to staff. So I kind of want to wrap this up. It's 9:15. What direction do we want to give Ms. Piedra?
If we're gonna do El Grito, I think that we need to make a decision sooner rather than later, right?
Okay.
Yeah, yes, because El Grito is, for us, it's already next month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we have to do the planning.
So I'm hearing, what I heard from Councilmember Jackson is that, it's gonna fall on us to help fundraise. So are we gonna move forward with it, but with the understanding that we have some heavy lifting to do here?
I think cash sponsorships are becoming more and more challenging. I think,
I agree.
I think it might be easier to raise, $1,500 for a small event like that, but to cash raise $15,000 specifically in a month, it's just not a viable alternative. And I know the consulate in Calexico does their grito in Calexico, which is covered by the consulate. It's not covered by the city of El Centro, the city of Calexico. But I think if the expectation is for some of us, to go out and raise, $15,000, it's just not going to happen.
So can we move forward and say that we're not gonna do that this year? The El Grito, at least for this year?
Or could we join forces with the city of Calexico, let them, maybe at half a price, and have some naming rights behind it, and let them borrow our stage for half the price, or some sort of combined effort?
Well, the city of Calexico doesn't do one. It's the consulate in Calexico that does one.
Well, would the council consider doing it in the city of El Centro?
I don't know.
Maybe if that one conversation that Mr. Silva had a while back ever comes to fruition, that might happen.
If I may suggest, if we do want to acknowledge in any way the El Grito, what I would suggest, as we pointed out, we do have the MOU, and we've been working very closely with the consulate office. What we can do, and it's basically indoors, and it would be inside the old post office, is do some kind of celebration there. Again, trying to minimize the cost of the personnel, because even if let's say we were to, work with Calexico in any way in taking the stage, that means that we have to send our staff over there and be there pretty much all day long. So I think that would be an issue. if in any way or shape or form we want to acknowledge that day and do some kind of activity, I would suggest that we work with the consulate office and do something in a much smaller scale at the old post office pavilion, and I think maybe they would be open to that.
What's capacity at OPOP?
It's about 110. Depending on how the setup is, because if we obviously have tables and everything set up, you know, we do have less number that we can accommodate. But, you know, that's something that we can explore if that's something that, you know, this council would like to pursue. Again, we are doing other cultural activities with them there throughout the year, so, you know, we can certainly entertain that.
I think the nice thing, or at least maybe somewhat of a luxury that we have, is that we were fortunate enough to have the MOU with the consulate's office, and we've really done a lot of cultural outreach and used that facility, probably the best we've used it in ever, maybe, since it stopped being a post office. So, you know, we
I
are
think when
still.
the Arts Council was there, it was
Yeah, that's true.
pretty
They
cool.
were, yeah, they used to do a lot of plays there. So I think there is some, you know, we're not completely cutting it out, and maybe we can bring it back next year, or maybe if we have a whole year. And I agree, you know, Mr. Silva's right. Trying to raise $15,000 cash in 30 to 45 days is somewhat almost impossible nowadays. It's not like it used to be.
Let's see if we have an alternative celebration at the Old Pop, right? And get focused on the Christmas tree lighting in December.
And make a request to the Community Foundation for at least one of those events.
And if we could get more kids' night out,
Yeah.
because those are really, really popular.
All right.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
you okay?
For direction?
So basically, so I can understand, is we're not doing El Grito this year.
No, I don't think that's.
We're not doing anything except Mardi Gras and Christmas tree lighting.
Okay.
Everything else we'll try to, if we want to do it, we'll try to self-fund.
But I heard they would propose an alternative.
See if we can
Yes,
scale
we can,
back.
and we
Oh,
can
yeah,
have
if
that
we can do something
conversation
small. Yeah, yeah,
with the
yeah.
consulate office. We
Smaller
can
at
certainly
the
do
Old
that.
Pub.
Okay.
So we'll obviously eliminate that for this fiscal year that's coming up. And then I also heard that Cesar Chavez Day, perhaps we won't do. So basically that, you know, really does assist us. And again, we'll do everything we can to minimize the cost. One of the things, you know, for example, with the veteran, is one of the things that we've been talking about is perhaps partnering with other agencies. I mean, the City of El Centro can support and help in terms of sponsoring, but we don't have to take the lead in a lot of these community events. So we can support, which we do, you know, in a lot of instances by in-kind, you know, having them or giving them the ability to use our facilities at no cost. So, you know, there's ways too that as staff we're looking at how can we possibly continue offering these events that our community likes. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the direction.
Thank you. Thank you again. All right, we're gonna go through these pretty quick, guys. So I'm gonna go ahead and move down to item number 23, and that is discussion and any necessary action regarding appointments to the El Centro Regional Medical Center Board of Trustees. I actually have Councilmember Efrain Silva, who would like to seek reappointment, along with Mr. Oliver Alvarado. So at this point, I'd entertain a motion to reappoint those individuals, and I believe it is for a 2-year term? Three-year term. So I have a motion from Walker, or Mayor Pro Tem Walker, a second from Councilmember Jackson, and then we'll go ahead and vote, and that carries 5-0. Motion passes.
I wouldn't need to abstain on that vote, correct?
No, you're okay. All right. Thank you again for serving on that. Moving down to item number 24, and that's discussion and any necessary action regarding the appointment of the Imperial Valley Housing Authority. I did get a request from Mr. Minnick to be reappointed, so I'm hoping the council will be supportive of that. So we have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker, a second from Efrain Silva. We'll go ahead and vote, and that also passes 5-0. Moving down to item number 25, and this is a presentation in regards to city council compensation. Mayor Pro Tem Villegas Walker.
Well, and this came up in a couple different regards. One is that we've got a really tough budget in front of us, and so the recommendation is that there be no council compensation increase for the coming fiscal year. That's number one. Number two is with regard to the original task force recommendation back in October of 2015. We said, let's review compensation every 2 years. We do it in odd-numbered years. But that was because the elections were occurring in odd-numbered years. So the recommendation now is that we move it, change the review to odd-numbered years so it doesn't come up right before the elections, okay? And so it's actually 2 recommendations. 1, no increase for this year, and number 2, move that biannual review to odd-numbered years.
Now, is there any formal action needs to be taken, or we can just take it as
I don't think so. I think that because if we look at the original report that came to us back in 2015, there was a specific recommendation that talked about instead of letting this go for forever and then reviewing it, you know, every 9 years or whatever, that we just do it. Or was that?
On the document in front of you?
Yes.
If you look at the top of the last page, it has 1, 2, 3, which were the task force recommendations.
Oh,
On
there
num-
we go, there we go.
On number
So
3,
it's on
change the
page-
word even to odd.
Yeah, so it's on page 277 of the agenda packet. If that helps.
So do we need action for that, or just simply direction will be sufficient?
I think direction's
Direction,
sufficient.
and so part of this is making sure that the city clerk reminds us to get it on our, to get it to us on odd-numbered years. And and it's not in the budget for there to be a city council increase, so that really doesn't matter, but I think it's worth noting.
All right.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you for your report on that. Moving down to item number 26. There is a department report. Do we want to talk a little bit about that? Yes, we do. Ms. Zarate.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm bringing you an update on the homeless issues that we've had here in the city and just our efforts that city staff has made. We did staff attended the point-in-time contact back in January. And so El Centro's number for this contact and review was 403 homeless in El Centro. And that's just in El Centro. Back in 2016, the count was 83.
We're representing about 50% of the homeless people.
It's very large. If we compare it to Slab City, yeah. The police department has been very present, especially in the downtown area with all the activities that have been going on down there. I included just the police contacts from October to December of last year. There were 336 police contacts made. It has dropped from January to May. There's been a total of 247. So it has reduced a little bit, but they're still receiving continuous calls out there. I can report out as far as the transfer terminal. We did hold interviews for armed security firm, and we'll be bringing a recommendation to you at the next council meeting. And hopefully we can have them on board September 1st.
September 1st, excellent, okay.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Zarate?
Well, I have a question. With regard to the security support, the armed security guard at the regional transfer terminal, is the $90,000 from ICTC going to be sufficient to cover the cost of the contract?
As long as we don't incur any overtime or requests for additional, overtime, then yes, it will be sufficient.
All right, any other questions?
I know we got a lot of requests when we were doing our walking tour to see
Right.
if the officer could make rounds or through downtown.
Yeah.
See what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Thank you, Ms. Zarate. I appreciate
problem.
you hanging in there. Moving down, we just have a couple information items, 27 and 28. In regards to successor agency to the redevelopment, no business schedule. Successor housing agency, no business schedule. Do you have any additional public comments? No? There's not. We'll go ahead and combine community and task force reports. Maybe the abbreviated version of them.
Yep, real quick.
Who wants to start? Mr. Garcia or Councilmember
That's
Garcia?
fine, I'll go first. On June 15th, I had the pleasure of attending the El Centro Chamber of Commerce Annual Dinner at NAF El Centro. It was a wonderful event, joined there by Councilmember Villegas Walker, Councilmember Silva, as well as Marcela Piedra and Liz Zarate. That was a great event. It was very well attended. They did a good job with the venue, and they really kind of set out a vision for the next year. The leadership seems to be intact, and looking forward to what the chamber can bring to the city for the following year.
Excellent. Who's the new president?
What?
Who's the new president? Jeff Sertoven. Jeff? Okay.
Is the incoming, yeah. So since the last meeting, I've been pretty active with Southern California Association of Government Events. We had a 2-day executive committee retreat at Lake Arrowhead. And then I had previously reported that I'm part of this big data, open data task force that was just kicked off on the 13th of June. And then we had a ledge committee meeting this morning at 8:30. I thought the walking tour of downtown was absolutely incredible. And I want to thank all of the members of both the public and staff that participated in that. I think we got a lot of feedback. We got a laundry list of things to take a look at. I know that a request has gone out for us to kind of capture some of our ideas and things that we heard within our individual walking groups. I think it's really important for us to get that information back so that we have it available at the next Community Enhancement Task Force. So that's it. I did want to folks remind you about the Salt and Sea Management Program. If anybody's able to make that, there's one coming up, let's see, El Centro on the 29th. Community workshop. Okay.
All right. Councilmember Silva?
I think that based on a recommendation from Mayor Pro Tem Walker, I was asked by the El Centro Chamber of Commerce to make a presentation on the 2050 vision, and I did that, and I thought it was very well received, very good feedback from the chamber members. I also thought that the downtown tour was amazing. I had my reservations at first, like I'm not sure how this is gonna work out, but I have to say that it worked out extremely well. But as I mentioned earlier, we made a commitment to the downtown merchants that we were gonna do something concrete about this and come up with some results out of that. So I think that we have to keep that commitment sooner rather than later.
Yep.
Also, I did attend we talked about the consulate and the MOU and the workshops and events that they have at the old post office. So they had an end of year celebration that was just amazing to see all the little ones dancing, Polynesian dancing and folklorico dancing and singing and the artwork. And it was just amazing what they were able to do and continue to do. And also, I attended the chamber dinner along with Mr. Walker and Mr. Garcia and some staff. So it was a good week.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Garcia. Councilmember Jackson?
Real quick, just the walking tour downtown, I thought was really well attended by a lot of the business owners, and we saw some business building property owners, which is new. We haven't had that kind of participation, so I thought that was well done. And then just to announce, and I know everybody saw it in the paper, that the Kiwanis Club did the cleanup at Adams Park, and the only reason I bring that up is because I think that we kind of made a commitment to that young lady that did such a great job of proposing that we do something with that park, and at the time we proposed to try to do something with the service clubs, and so I appreciate the Kiwanis Club. I want to mention KC Rentals, United Rentals, and CR&R, because without them, we wouldn't have been able to do that project, and as well as the labor from the Kiwanis Club of El Centro. So,
excellent. Thank you, Councilmember Jackson. Just real quick, was able to attend the Flag Day ceremony at the park. Want to thank our Chief Herbert, did a great job. It's pretty intense. Those Boy Scouts are folding flags, for hours. And so to be able to retire Old Glory, and give it its proper decorum and due diligence was a great event. I appreciate everybody and Councilmember Jackson for his help and help coordinating that. That was really impressive. Also, unfortunately have to report, I did attend our Citizens Advisory Committee from Centinela, and starting in the fall, they'll start releasing about 25 inmates a week from Centinela alone, and that's because of the new legislation. So that is a topic that they will be addressing. They will be going back to their county of origin. I still don't know what that impact is for us here in Imperial County, but in the fall, they're looking at releasing about 25 inmates a week.
Could we ask for our Chief Probation Officer, Dan Prince? Dan?
Yeah.
Dan
Yeah,
Prince,
Chief Prince.
to come and do a presentation to the El Centro City Council with regard to what their plan is?
Yeah, and I don't know who, Chief, would you want to reach out to him, or how would we make, I mean, I know him, I can ask him, but I don't know if there's some protocol or decorum that we should follow. Any recommendations, Chief? Call? All right, then I will call him.
Well,
I will call
I
him.
think maybe why don't you call him? But
Okay.
maybe what we need to do is, because he's a department head for the CEO maybe you ask Mr. Cordova, or just say, hey, we'd like to have, there's been a request that probation do a presentation. Because I think there's a lot of issues we need to address, and not just
Right.
that one.
Okay.
With regard to some
Then
of the
in
other
addition to
things.
that, every year of sentence is going to get reduced by 1 month. So those are some of the challenges. Probably seen more being released from Centinela as opposed to Calapat, but I've asked them to definitely keep us posted on the release and what services they'll be wrapping around them. So with that, I think we're done. Guys,
Can't you end up on a high note there?
no, the high note is, you know what? I want to thank you guys for allowing me to adopt my first budget as mayor. I have so much respect for you guys. But thank you. We stand adjourned.